considering the hybrid model in Everett. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Identify yourself by your name and address before you move forward with your comments.
My name is Cindy Shaughnessy. I'm speaking on behalf of my sister, Christine Marson of Everett. She lives on 21 Haskell Ave in Everett. I'm more concerned for the learning ability for these students. I know COVID's a high risk. I work in healthcare field and I expose everybody to COVID every day. With the hybrid learning, the concern mostly is how these students will learn. It's just basically being in a school where they have secure internet, learning just the way they are at home. However, my niece, who is a 5th grade student at the Webster School, currently attends the e-learning center over at the Caverian. And even though there's teachers there, the teachers cannot physically help her, where she's an IEB student who has ADHD. My concern more is to how these teachers can help these students get back into learning with hands-on, and how is this hybrid going to help these students who they can't even reach? And I know they can share their screens, but like I said, my niece, I work hands-on with her, needs the hands-on. And yes, COVID is very widely spread.
Okay, thank you for your time. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, my name is Cher Camo. I live at 94 Main Street in Everett. My son has recently been with the Whittier School. My concern is my son is in kindergarten, and kindergarten is literally the learning stages, the beginning stages of getting down a good foundation for education, to build friendships, to have that socializing throughout the day. And being at home, there's too many distractions for a 5 or 6 year old. He doesn't have the attention span to sit there all day and focus on a computer or a tablet and get the education that he deserves. So I think that the hybrid for right now is a great step. At least he'll be in a classroom and he'll be with the teacher. But right now, this process so far, it's just not working for him. And it's not fair. I don't believe it's fair to the younger ones.
Great. Thank you for your time. Next speaker, please.
Certainly. Hi, my name is Caitlin Nardi. I am an educator at the high school and I live in Tewksbury, 8 Chester Street. First, before I begin my comment, does the school committee hear us? The live stream is currently paused.
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Should I continue or?
Please.
Okay, great. Okay. So at the high school, much has been said about caring for the social and emotional needs of our students. I want to know what the district is doing to prepare students for the impact of getting exposed to the virus at school, bringing it home to their families, and watching their loved ones get sick or even die from a virus that they carried home. With our positivity rates and our dense population, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen more than once. What are teachers and counselors supposed to say to these students? What is the district going to say to these families?
Okay, thank you for your comments. Again, this is public comment, and the way that it's set up and by statute, it's not a question and answer period. But your comments are well noted, and thank you for your time. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Elena Hickey. My address is 110 Bradford Street, and I'm also here with my mother, Pamela Hickey, whose address is also 110 Bradford Street. We live in a multi-generational home. I am an educator in the Everett Public School System, and I live with 2 students attending Everett High School. We have taken extreme measures since Christmas time to make sure
During the
that
hybrid
we
model
are
in Everett. Thank you.
practicing
During the hybrid
quarantining
model.
to the best of our ability. We are very concerned about the possible spread from school to home, and we're just working on keeping my elderly mother, who has some pretty significant health issues, safe. I am very concerned about making sure that I am vaccinated, and my daughters have also chosen to remain remote until at least the fourth quarter, where we will reassess it. I know that lots of people have differing opinions, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the school committees taking time to listen to public comment. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for your time. Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name is Richard English. I live in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and I'm an educator at the high school. I have a number of prepared statements from other people who could not make it this evening, and I'm taking them as my own. Number one, I have many concerns, including being generally terrified for me and myself. But my biggest concern for education is that there will likely be less learning than there is now. Students and teachers alike will be so scared and stressed, and logistics alone are disruptive. Also, we have been assured by admin in the beginning of the year that we would go beyond the strictest guidelines, but now we are not even following the CDC guidelines for reopening. I think that most other concerns have been brought up.
I snagged a spot.
I think that most other concerns have been brought up and are on your list, but I can't express enough how legitimately terrified I am, and I think many of us are. The cases statewide are reaching record numbers, and we know that Everett has been disproportionately affected. Specifically at the high school, we know that many of our students are working and exposing themselves regularly. The science also now shows us that kids at high school age can transmit the virus as much as an adult. I fear that a hybrid model will actually produce less learning due to stress, distractions, logistics, and the potential to lose many teachers to leave. This will cause more change and disruption in the students' education when they are already so stressed. I think most students at the high school level have already accepted and adapted to the remote learning model and its expectations. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yes, I am. I'm sorry, I was on mute. Good evening. Maureen Morelli, 129 Walnut Street, Everett. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Are reaching record numbers, and we know that Everett has been disproportionately affected.
Okay, great. I'm a proud Everett educator and a resident. Shout out to my 7th grade students. I'm calling tonight because I want to express my dismay and disappointment in the 10 months that have passed and we have no plan. Everything seems to be shrouded in secrecy and mystery. I'm not really sure why. I want to encourage the school committee and the administration to be inclusive and not exclusive in creating a plan to return to the buildings. I want to encourage that we look at the numbers and the data and that we think about safety and health first. I would also like to encourage the committee to invite Ms. Aga to have an opportunity to ask questions and to speak this evening. We need many things in order to return to the building. We need vaccines. We need easy access to testing for staff and for students if necessary. We need appropriate spacing in classrooms. We need PPE. We need to rehire the matrons. I don't know why we would let people go when we need people to keep our schools clean and safe. Lastly, the safety of Everett students, families, and teachers weigh on your shoulders. So please consider that in your decisions and your votes tonight. How do you want to be remembered by the families and the teachers of Everett? Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for at least one more speaker.
My name is Melissa Frazier. I live at 223 Parkland Ave in Lynn. I am an Everett school teacher, and I am concerned about going back, not only for obvious safety reasons, without even know if any protocols have been put in place for teachers and students, but I'm also concerned that parents are under the misunderstanding that students are going to be entering a hybrid learning model, and it will be similar to a normal teaching model. However, if we are to be Zooming with our students in both cohorts, we are going to be doing a remote learning in school. And I feel like students aren't going to be getting what parents think they are getting, why they are there. And now we are exposing ourselves and our students to this virus to be in school doing the same thing we're doing at home. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around the sense that that makes. And I also would like to say that I would also urge the school committee to allow Kim Auger to comment during this meeting so that she is part of the conversation and can, put forth what us teachers think is best for our students. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we've got time for one last speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Mars, and I'm for Christina Circle in Everett, Mass. And I basically just have questions that I've actually emailed a few times to the superintendent with no response. So I'm just going to ramble them off because I know this is recorded and hopefully that they will be answered.
We're on the Zoom!
Different grades, different times. Will they be changing classes? Is it a full day or a half day when they actually do go back, even if it's hybrid? Once they start going back, can they change back to remote if the families feel they need to? What happens when a student tests positive or a teacher tests positive? What does it mean for that class? Do they all quarantine for 2 weeks? Is it just the people that sit closest to them? Will testing be required to go back? Is testing required weekly? Will they be allowed to bring in backpacks and lunches? How will teachers be able to teach to the kids in front of them, the kids on Zoom, which has already been asked? And what will cleaning and sanitation look like, especially with the letting go of so many of the people that should have been doing that? How can we be guaranteed that the sanitation of the school isn't compromised with less staff? And also why all of a sudden this big push, it would have made more sense to just hybrid in September when the numbers were low than to try to get everybody back in. Well, the numbers are a little higher now. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time. Per our rules, public comment is a 15-minute period. We've exceeded that with the number of callers. So,
I'll make a motion to close public comments.
I'll second that.
okay, motion been made and seconded to close public comment. Ms. Celeste, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor Di Maria,
No.
Ms. Lambert,
No.
Mr. LaMonica,
No.
Ms. Murray,
No.
Ms. Sarni,
No.
Mr. Parker.
Yes. So we have 5 in the affirmative. We can continue public comment for another 15 minutes.
All right, give me 1 second.
I just went. Was it not?
Hi, my name is Eric Piazza. I live in Wilmington and I live at 4 Phillips Ave. Also like to say that my wife is a teacher in Reading. As a guidance counselor at Xaverian School, we have 3 different models that we've been working with all year long. I'm grateful for the time and effort spent by everyone involved in the process. I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts as we enter the next phase of the school year. Our current plan is unique and stable. We have a clear picture of how our students receive their instruction. Our plan is safe and provides an accessible education for the young people of Everett. The plan's not easy for our students. They need to be back in person with their teachers. That alone makes a school a special place for everyone involved. The experience of being in school is how kids learn to build community, and they get so much more than just curricular content when learning in person. In my role, I work with students to help foster positive relationships and teach them to become upstanding citizens. I realize how much we are missing those connections. However, reopening too soon before there is a cohesive plan that was collaboratively designed by representatives of all stakeholders does not seem like a risk worth taking. We want to be back in school. If we continue to practice patience and work together to make it happen, we'll likely have a more seamless transition. This approach seems to be more consistent with the way we began the school year. Transitioning to a hybrid model now when numbers continue to be at their highest levels seems like too much of a risk, knowing that it will cause disruptions to our families. This community needs consistency and predictability, which is what we're currently providing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piazza. Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name is Jamie Chambers. I live at 44 High Street in Everett. My concerns are, I'm a grandmother raising my grandson going to Xaverian School, and I have some very serious health issues. If my grandson is in school and catches COVID and brings it home, I'm afraid I will not recover from this disease. And it's very concerning because there's nobody else to take care of my grandson. And it's something very serious. And I just want them to consider not sending the kids back so soon. The numbers are rising. Now Massachusetts has the new mutation of the virus, and it's easier to catch. And my concerns are, him getting sick and bringing it home to us, also his health too. And I just want to thank you for listening.
Thank you for your time. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Geraldine Carson Mendonça, and I live at 19 Inglewood Ave in Everett.
Hi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, so I have a special needs child who's in a regular classroom. He's a new student to the Xaverian, but he's done the hybrid version all year. I know going back would cause him a lot of anxiety. I think that kids should not be afraid for their lives or to get sick. I think that our teachers' lives matter, our kids' lives matter, the families' lives matter. Education is important, and of course he misses like seeing his classmates and all that, but at what risk? At least I know my kid is home safe and he is still learning. His teacher is amazing at making sure all of his needs are met, and I think that the model that we're using right now is working and we're not risking any lives. Thank you.
Thank you. I know this is not a question and answer period, but I can hear the stress and the voice of the last 2 speakers. Please know, parents, guardians, custodians, if and when we go hybrid, you still have the option of having your child learn from home in a remote setting. The remote option has been in place since the start of school and hasn't changed. So please understand that you have that choice. So thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello?
Hello.
Hear me?
Yeah, if you could just provide us with your name and your address, please.
My name is Margarita Pineda Jimenez, and I live at 130 Grover Street in Everett. I am thankful for the opportunity to speak to the committee here. I am the parent of 2 Everett school students, and I cannot begin to thank the teachers enough for all of their efforts through this pandemic. I strongly urge folks to not reopen or go for the hybrid model. The risk is too high. I am a state social worker, and so I am very aware of the numbers and how high things are out there. The risk is not worth for the health of our children and for the health of our families. Bottom line is that right now they've gotten adjusted to the model, the remote learning, and the teachers, as other folks have said, have just been amazing at trying to maintain the level of education for the students. Going back at the end of February or whenever it is proposed, it's just not worth the risk of any more lives. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your time. The next speaker, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is William Hurley, 21 Freeman Ave, Everett, Mass. I just had a question, actually. Am I allowed to comment on the trip to Hawaii, or is this just for the hybrid model?
You're allowed to comment on anything that's appropriate for tonight's agenda. So please, Mr. Hurley, go right ahead.
Okay. So I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to everybody for everything that you've done for the kids so far this year and going through the rest of the year. I know it's not easy, and just know everybody here appreciates everything that you've done. I just wanted to take 1 minute just to say that I truly believe this is a trip of a lifetime for the band. If anybody has a chance to vote yes for this, I know right now things don't look good, but by December, when they'll be traveling, I believe that they will be able to travel safely, and it is a chance for a trip of a lifetime. It's the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Most likely the president's going to be there, and there's going to be an incredible experience for these kids. They've missed so much so far this year. I urge everybody just to vote yes for this, and we can make it work. And that's all. Thank you very much, and I hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Next speaker, please.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay, thank you. First, thank you, everyone. My name is Susan Lane, 81 Turkey Hill Road, Newburyport, Mass. And I, too, am an Everett public school teacher. First, I want to just give a huge shout out to our paraprofessionals who are out there on the front lines right now, who are at those e-learning centers and giving our kids 110% so that we are able to remotely teach from our homes. And I know as one of the hundreds of the Everett public school teachers and the super paraprofessionals who are on the forum right now, we're way more vital than just what the data is going to present or might present. We are fierce educators, and we have risen to the unimaginable, and we have clearly become better educators. However, beyond educators, we are people. We're people who have health concerns, who care for others with health concerns, or perhaps will expose many more due to this horrific and deadly virus. Please make it clear, we want to go back when it is deemed safe. The vaccine is shortly arriving, as will the second vaccine. We should withhold until the second is effective and return safely when protocols are in place. We all should be going back together. Having this hybrid of having teachers still remotely teach while teaching remotely in front of 10 of your other kids, it really needs to be revisited. Face masks will cover those who still need to see your teachers smile or watch their lips move for comprehension. I know, especially for my English language learners, that's a huge factor that we seem to have missed from all this. How will I be able to read to my students if my face mask is covered? Let's focus on what the experts say rather than this data of how everyone should rush back. I can't imagine the psychological data that we would be perhaps preventing by keeping our kids home. We are in a routine. We are in a rhythm. We want to have our lives valued because we are the rock as educators behind not just our school children, but behind our families. We're the rock in our families as well. So let us take care of everybody, but let us do what we do best with the school. Let us teach our kids. You don't worry about the remote learning thing because I promise you we have this. We are better educators. I've said that from the very beginning and I do believe it. But my last part is, here's my solution. Until such time, let us do what we do best. Teach, let our students continue having this routine. They need the routine more than any of us. I'm teaching children, for instance, who live with their grandparents and have tested positive, yet they still make it online every day to see me. I'm honored as an educator that they're able to see me 5 days a week.
You have 30 seconds.
And yet I feel grateful that I put a smile and I comfort them. Are we forgetting about the psychological impact of that? Think of the kids. I have children right now, and I've mentioned this before, but students who are online who are currently in Brazil or in Salvador during the pandemic because their own immediate Everett families are taking care of their ill family members from the disease. They're excited to see me every day. It's been a great curriculum. We've added the weather of the day component in 3 different places so far. It's been wonderful.
You have 30 seconds.
We have given these kids consistency in a very inconsistent environment. We should go back when we know our community is safe. And no, although I'm not an official member of Everett, I do feel that I've been part of the Everett community since I've become an educator in Everett. You can ask my students, both current and former. I admire and I appreciate all the members of the Everett community, especially the teachers. Please look behind the data and send us back when it's safe. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Okay, if I can remind everybody, you have 3 minutes. So therefore, with the 5 minutes taken up by the last speaker, we have time for one more caller for public comment. Next person, please, for public comment.
Hi, my name is Courtney Shula, and I'm on Ferry Street in Everett. My son currently goes to the Lafayette School, and all my children have been in the Everett school system. And I'm just speaking on our behalf. I am just so grateful for the teachers and all the hard work that they've had to put in this past year. But I also want to speak on a personal matter that I am a cancer survivor and a lot of autoimmune disorder. Using my child as a guinea pig to put him back into school to test it out, I'm just not comfortable with at the moment. Any day of the week, you can walk into Everett Square and see the lines are wrapped behind with people getting tested. The numbers are not going down. In fact, they're going up. So at the moment, I just urge the public school system to just continue to go as it is right now.
until the vaccines are available for the teachers, first and foremost, and until testing is more available for students, and just so that the families can stay safe, the children can stay safe, and yeah, we can just continue to do as we're doing. I do sympathize with the children who want to get back to school, but it won't be beneficial if we're all sick in the long run. So just thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the teachers who have put so much hard work into teaching my children, and I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity to hear me out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, we now have time for one more person. So if we have anybody else on the line that'd like to participate in public comment,
Hi, my name
please.
is Kristen Barros, 17 Baldwin Ave, Everett. I have two students in the Everett Public Schools, currently an 8th grader and an 11th grader. I first wanted to say that at the end of the day, it's a family's choice whether
This is that
to
other
hybrid or to stay
release, the 10
remote.
Barrett
And it
Stewards,
shouldn't be
the younger blonde.
judgment. I, for my family, would be choosing a hybrid model only because at the end of the day, mental health should be a priority on these kids. A lot of these kids are getting depressed and lonely. They're sitting in their bedrooms or at a desk for 4+ hours a day. We can't leave out for these kids that are failing as well. They're not learning. Yes, I know when they go back, they will be 6 feet apart, wearing a mask, but that structure and out of the house will make a huge impact. I did send my kid into the e-learning center until Thanksgiving, and his mental health and mood did improve so much. His grades, not so much, because he doesn't learn virtually very well, and he's been home since, and I see him regressing. Our kids need social interaction, even if it's with a mask and socially distanced. I believe we can, as a community, do this safely and have it be successful. There are many schools that are in the red zone that are doing well with little to no cases. A hybrid model, I think in phases, is probably the best choice, as you're not overwhelming the schools and sending 100% in. I think it's best if it's at 25%. My youngest, I paid for a preschool program, and he's been amazing, and they've had little to no cases. So if the toddlers can do it, I feel like we as adults and middle schoolers and kids can do it. I mean, we finally have hand soap in the bathrooms and hand sanitizer in our schools. The schools are probably the cleanest they've been. I believe our custodian staff is doing a great job keeping our schools safe, and with air purifiers, all the sanitizing, masks, the vaccines coming, social distances, small class sizes, I believe we can make this work. We need to talk more about mental health and how this will benefit our most vulnerable students right now. And there's a lot of downtime for most kids as well. I know for me, my high school kid sleeps all day and watches Netflix. It's not learning. And then I have another one sitting on Zoom all day struggling. With that, I really hope that in tonight's meeting, a lot of the answers that I know parents, teachers, and staff and caregivers have been asking are answered. You put a survey out to gauge a number, great. But the biggest piece you forgot was the communication, giving out more information to help parents make a better choice, whether it's remote, hybrid, in between. I wasn't the biggest fan of the last super, but I can say that when you emailed or called, you had an issue or concern, you were called back and were able to state your question or concern. That is missing, and it's a huge issue. My advice as a parent is you need to give us more information. Since planning on hybrid is being discussed tonight, how about in the next week or so, you do something similar to what our mayor has done and do a live Q&A and really get to know our community and their concerns, feedback, questions. That would be a huge community engagement that I know parents, teachers, and community members would respect and want to be a part of. I know a lot of parents are waiting till after this meeting to see what information is giving. So how can parents get the questions answered after this meeting? Because I know I have emailed the superintendent as well in the beginning, as many parents, and have not been getting anything answered. I think there needs to be a better system. And I appreciate you let me talk tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We've completed our public comment. Body,
Make a motion to close public comment.
I'll second.
Mr. Chairman, on the motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Di Maria.
Thank you. I definitely never want to cut anyone off from giving public comment. We did receive a lot of public comments. I think it's definitely at this time to hear the superintendent's plan. And I think Christine said it right, that after this this presentation is given by the superintendent, maybe we should hold a public forum to listen to parents, maybe something, a citywide Zoom, or we can set up a citywide town hall, telephone town hall with parents and teachers to communicate more with us. But I think a lot of the questions and concerns that some of the parents and some of the teachers have brought up are going to be, you will get some answers to those questions in this presentation, like vaccinations for teachers, kids being able to stay home and still stay remote. So at this time, I would be in favor of closing public participation, only for the mere fact that I think the superintendent's presentation would ease a lot of people's concerns, or at least give some information for those parents who have been, wanted to hear some information. So thank you very much, and I vote favorable to close public participation myself. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Celestin, roll call, please.
Mr. Abizair,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor Di Maria,
Yes.
Mrs. Lambert, Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes. So we have 9 in the affirmative, 0 negative. We've closed public hearing. Madam Secretary, Madam Superintendent, the next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yes, we're going to share this evening's update that I think will be able to answer a lot of the questions, as well as, I think there's been some misinformation out there. So hopefully it'll be able to clear up some of the misunderstandings as we still are in the planning phases of this. So this is the first of many presentations that we'll have regarding the return to hybrid learning. However, first, we will be going over some of the data that we have been going over in the past. So we're just going to share our screen. Let's see. And also, actually, but before I get started, I did want to just welcome Mayor Di Maria, who is joining us tonight for the first time as a voting member of the school committee. So we do look forward to working with the mayor in his increased role on this committee, and with the city as a whole on partnerships that we can all be proud of. And I think one of those demonstrations of that collaboration you'll be outlined tonight. And I also did want to just, very quickly mention that we are meeting this evening on a Tuesday night because yesterday we were on a holiday for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and so I did just want to make sure that I had recognized that such an influential and impactful person, and I think that we should be carrying his principles throughout all of the work that we do. And as I think about our present circumstances in which our educators and leaders are finding themselves, there was one particular quote that stood out to me, which is, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. And I think it's difficult to conceive of a better sentiment to cling to as we sort of, crawl, walk, or try to run towards that moment when our district is soaring once more, when we can all be back together. So again, I just wanted to thank you for all of your efforts and thank all of our stakeholders, all of our parents and families and their understanding over the past few months. I look forward to seeking their continued input and support as we do draft these plans to move towards hybrid learning. So again, tonight will look at our hybrid model. We are going to again, which we are still finalizing, but there are portions of it that we do need to discuss and vote on this evening. Our plans are also closely aligned with the opportunity to vaccinate our teachers and staff, which is an undertaking that has been defined by a close and collaborative working partnership between the Everett Public Schools and City Hall. And at the forefront of this is our mayor and our city's Board of Health and its director, Sabrina Farrakano, who we want to thank for her tireless efforts, not just in giving the vaccinations, but also over these past many months. And so we do believe that we are well on our way to building a framework that we believe will sustain the hybrid learning once it does start. And again, I just want to stress from the outset that the hybrid learning will not be mandatory for students. So that is actually Massachusetts, mandated at any point in the school year, unless DESE even changes that mandate. And even if they did, I imagine we would, again, considering the community that we're in, we would keep the remote option available to all families. So I hope that does assuage the concern of families who do have concerns about returning, that they will be able to opt for a fully remote learning model. And this is what we're seeing in all districts. So even districts that are in person and hybrid, all families do have that option, whether they move from one model to another, to be able to stay remote given our current circumstances. So we'll get into the specific plans of our plan later. But to begin, I did want to share some important developments and updates about that you and our families I did want to be aware of, as well as our regular attendance data and bi-weekly review of the latest COVID-19 data. So to the last member's point, or the last speaker's point, Ms. Barros's point, we are planning on having many different family engagement opportunities. Next slide, please. And so one of the ones that we would like to highlight that we have already had was last week we had our EPS first LPAC meeting, so our English Language Parent Advisory Committee meetings of the year. So we hosted these virtual meetings in Portuguese, Spanish, Haitian Creole on January 12th, 13th, and 14th, respectively. And we were really pleased with the participation, the energy, and the feedback that those groups generated. So we do hope to see more families join our LPACs in the coming months, as we do see them as a crucial part of our parent outreach efforts. And I just wanted to give my sincerest thanks to our staff who facilitated these sessions and to everyone who attended, including parent, teachers, administrators, and school committee members. And to that same point, we actually have planned, and they will be publicized, Q&A sessions the week of February 8th that will be held in English, but also in our native languages as well, Q&A sessions by school, so that families can ask questions. So we are planning for those as well, but again, I'll speak to those a little later. So anyway, to get back to the LPACs, these Zoom sessions were led by our family liaisons, and they were held entirely in our 3 primary foreign languages. So parents only had to join the meeting in their respective language. They did not have to go into separate breakout rooms or click on any separate links. So in this, very important sense, the meetings were totally accessible, and there was English interpretation for, school committee members who joined, or for myself who did not know the native languages. Each meeting lasted for approximately 2 hours, the bulk of which featured an overview of some of the most important facets of our English learner programs. This included, but was not limited to, discussion on levels of English proficiency, how to access and understand test scores and reports, access testing, iReady testing, IEPs, and so on. We also talked a lot about our family liaisons and the invaluable role they've been playing in helping families. We want to make sure to get the word out about our family liaisons more, so that families know that they're a resource that can be called upon. And then the meetings did conclude with a discussion on hybrid learning. So the dialogue was particularly robust, and I think it was noteworthy how enthusiastic the participants were about seeing their students return to school for more in-person teaching and learning. So throughout those meetings, we did receive a steady flow of valuable thoughts and opinions. to name just one that was of particular interest was the suggestion that we make our progress reports, less wordy and more visual, which is something we're going to explore moving forward. And then they also had some very, helpful ideas about some of the things they would like to see in the hybrid model, which we've also taken under advisement. So looking at the specifics of each of the meetings, the Portuguese LPAC had 35 total participants with 19 parents. The Spanish meeting had 55 participants, 37 of whom were EPS parents. Our Haitian Creole meeting had 26 participants, including 13 parents. And was also helped. We were joined in that meeting by and all of those by our family liaisons. Our second Spanish LPAC meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 6th, followed by the Portuguese one on April 7th and the Haitian Creole one on April 8th. So again, those are the LPAC meetings, but we will be having meetings before those for Q&As for the hybrid. So anyone who is interested in being an LPAC officer or joining one of our 3 parent advisory committees should contact a family liaison before February 1st. So we will be holding elections between February 8th and 10th, and officers will be announced on February 11th. The agenda, which we will publish in advance, will be shaped by our officers, so our families will have a huge part in shaping those agendas to ensure that we are covering all the relevant and timely content that they would like to hear about. And so I encourage anyone who's listening tonight to please join these committees at our next meeting, to email our family liaisons about how you can get more involved. I think it is a great opportunity for our families to contribute to the feedback that we're receiving about what students' education in the Everett Public Schools. Up next, I wanted to quickly tell you about the new user-friendly process for our families that they can utilize to book registration appointments at our Parent Information Center. So we implemented this small but very important change last week, and we do expect it to be beneficial to both our parents and our staff. So previously, we required families to call the Parent Information Center or PIC to set up an appointment to register students for school, but this was inefficient on several fronts, most simply for the fact that it wasn't easy for people to answer phones and help families in person at the same time. So we've switched to a free online appointment scheduling software called Calendly, which can be accessed with one click on the EPS website. So users are first asked whether they want to make an appointment with a family liaison who speaks English, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, or Spanish, and then they can select a day and time slot for their appointment at the PIC, which is presently located at the Cavarian School. And once that process is complete, the appointment is then confirmed by a family liaison. And it's very nice because Calendly's interface is very visual, very easy to navigate for users, and functional and versatile for our staff. So we do hope that will be more accessible to our families. Another very important update for families is regarding the flu vaccine, and hopefully many of you already got some of our messages about this, but I did still want to take a quick moment to pass along information about the flu vaccine and the PEBT benefits. So again, late last week, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health announced that it is eliminating its requirement that students receive the flu vaccine. So during our last meeting, we actually spoke in detail about the requirement and the February 28th deadline for families to submit proof of vaccination to their student school, but that is no longer the case. So the DPH did make this decision on the basis of preliminary data showing that it has actually been a mild flu season to date, perhaps in part because of the widespread use of face coverings, the practice of social distancing, and while the requirement has been lifted, the DPH does still strongly recommend that students 6 months of age and older do receive their seasonal flu vaccine. And we do very much want to applaud and thank our school nurses for spreading the word about this previous requirement, as well as to the city for its success in giving the free flu vaccines to our residents this season, as well as to our families who did already provide proof of their flu vaccine. So we do appreciate everybody's efforts on this front. Secondly, a reminder to the community that anyone with a child enrolled in the Everett Public Schools is eligible to receive financial food assistance through the federal program, the PEBT. So the Department of Transitional Assistance, or DTA, in collaboration with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, operate this program, which provides support to families with children who receive free and reduced price school meals. So these benefits have been extended into 2021. So this is a good time to just remind parents about these benefits, about this program, as they apply to our students who are learning under remote or hybrid models. So if you are interested in signing up or have any questions about PEBT, you can reach the Department of Transitional Assistance, or DTA, at 1-877-382-2363. And we also have the complete information about the program available on our website at the address listed at the bottom of this page. So everettpublicschools.org/apps/pages/PEBT. And this page includes quick links to valuable resources, as well as informational flyers in English, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Spanish. So switching gears, I wanted to share quick update information on student enrollment, which had been a question in the past. So the biggest takeaway from the most recent data is that new student enrollment is down. From September through December of 2019, we enrolled 712 new students. And during the same time frame in 2020, we enrolled 431 students. So Everett, like so many communities across the state, has seen a noticeable decline in enrollment in pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. So it's not a stretch to attribute this in large part to apprehension about remote learning among families with the youngest of students, who we heard from some of those families tonight. So we do expect enrollment to increase or spike back up in the fall of 2021, as families who did not enroll their students this past year will for next school year. And as we look at this year exclusively, of the 431 students we enrolled in the Everett Public Schools from September through December, 101 are English learners and 32 are special education students. 38 are designated as fluent English proficient, or FLEP. So their first language is in English, but they are fluent in English. So as you would expect, we enrolled a large percentage of our new students in September, so 251 to be exact. And then we enrolled 107 students in October, and then less than 50 in both November and then again in December. So on this next slide, as we've done throughout the year, we have provided you updated attendance figures, and continuing a trend, our daily attendance average is 93%, which is equal to the district's yearly average over the past decade. And as the chart on the right shows, our absences started to drop in October, and the figures have remained pretty steady ever since. As of the 76th day of school, more than 5,400 of our students had perfect attendance, or attendance rates of greater than 90%. And of more than 7,000 students, 271 have attendance of less than 60%. So we do hope that the return to more in-person instruction as the year goes on will serve to re-engage these students who, despite our greatest outreach efforts, have remained less connected during our remote model. So switching to the COVID-19 data, Everett continues to see a rise in total number of cases, and the concerns about a spike in cases after the holidays did come to fruition. So as of yesterday morning, there were more than 6,600 positive cases in Everett. And as you can see, the line began to move more dramatically upward around Thanksgiving, as we all know. Over the past 5 days or so, we have seen the number of positive cases start to decline. So that is good news. The numbers have dropped from the triple digits into the 50 to 70 range, which is encouraging. And today there were 49 new cases reported, yesterday 22 in the city. So hopefully this is the first sign that the post-holiday surge is beginning to recede. So this next slide shows the trend for the two key metrics we're always looking at, which is the daily incidence rate, and the percent positivity. So both have been showing signs of improvement, but on January 14th, 2 full weeks after the holiday break, the percent positivity rate was approaching 15%, which is the highest we've seen. So again, we are hopeful that as we move further into January, these percentages will begin to decrease. We also show this slide every time, which shows you where we are. So the number of red communities in the state does continue to climb. And Everett's daily incidence rate is the 8th highest amongst those cities and towns. So face coverings and social distancing remain the strongest measures we can take, again, in order to slow the spread. And these practices will be essential in our element of the hybrid model moving forward. So the overall surge in December impacted the number of cases among individuals under the age of 20, as this chart shows. So this is a numbers we've also been keeping our eye on. So there were 250 cases in this age group, which was more than in November and considerably more than any of the previous 8 months. So that's the number of under 20 in the city of Everett. And in this next slide, we also keep track of the exposures within our school buildings with our e-learning centers and those staff that are in our buildings. So this chart shows positive cases identified in blue, with each exposure to those deemed close contacts in red. So our contact tracing efforts will need to ramp up when we do start to bring in larger groups of students. So to that end, we are going to be hiring COVID-19 coordinators who will be able to oversee the contact tracing and other processes related to the pandemic, such as testing, as well. What's really interesting about this data is that it is not necessarily reflective of what we have seen happening in the overall city of Everett. So we've been trying to make kind of predictions as we go about what we thought we were going to see. For example, we were expecting to see a surge after Thanksgiving in the same way that we saw one in the city of Everett. However, what we actually saw in our e-learning centers and in our buildings was we had a little bit of a surge and a spike in those cases before Thanksgiving. And then the week after Thanksgiving, we actually reported no cases of positive rates. And then again, it went back up the week after. But again, it didn't follow when we were seeing a spike in the city of Everett, we weren't necessarily seeing that mirrored, or there was some kind of delay in our buildings. We actually saw the exact same thing happen before Christmas as well. So the first week back from the vacation, we did not send out any notification saying that there had been any cases on our e-learning centers, whereas we had already started to see an upward movement in the city of Everett. So, you know, these are just some of the data points we look at and try to reconcile as we are figuring out what exactly is going on and where these cases are coming from. In the next slide, you'll see this is just that same information kind of broken down a little bit differently so you can see it more aggregated by month. So here we have the complete totals which is why you don't see for complete months that we have, which is why you don't see September, which was a partial month, and January, which we're not fully all the way through yet. So there's not a clear trend again, but these figures are crucial to keep in mind as we explore changes in remote learning. I do see hands. I don't know if I should take questions now or at the end. I just realized, sorry, that I was just seeing hands. Ms. Lambert, did you have I feel like I may as well take a question right now.
I can wait until the end. Mine was actually related to student enrollment. So if you want to continue, that's fine.
All right, thanks. Okay. So in this next slide, a key component of our planning has been the quick family survey that we made available in English, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Spanish. So more than 2,300 responses have been recorded as of this morning. These charts were compiled based on our first 2,056 respondents. So of this group, 485 filled out the Spanish survey, 370 responded in Portuguese, and 19 in Haitian Creole. Before we look at the data, I did want to stress to the families who are listening tonight that the survey is still posted on the homepage of our website, and we do encourage any parent and guardian who has not filled it out to do so as soon as possible. It will only take a few minutes, and it will greatly help us as we're thinking about our plans for hybrid learning. So, and to the more than the 2,000 families that did submit it out, I did just want to thank them. And again, you know, we are going to be providing more information about hybrid learning And so people will be able to make a more informed decision and can even change their response as time goes on. But it was really important for us to be able to see where does the community really stand in this? What are people's feelings right now, given what we're seeing around us in a return? And this again is information that is without necessarily talking about testing or giving information about testing and vaccines, so that we could just see really raw data on how are people feeling about just a return right now, given our current circumstances. And the most important question we asked is whether families will send their students back to school for hybrid learning when it is offered. 1,144 said yes, while 912 said no. So in percentages, that is 56% said yes and 44% said no. Of course, this is not a binding question, as all of our students will be extended the offer to participate in hybrid learning when our completed plan is unveiled. But again, this provides us a good dipstick on what we're looking at. Improved COVID-19 metrics, we do believe, could very well change views on coming back to school. But the number of no responses does point to the apprehension on the part of a significant number of families. And it supports our decision to offer remote learning for the entirety of this school year. So conversely, we are excited on the other hand, too, that we do have so many families that are committed to or interested in returning to in-person teaching and learning. This next slide shows the breakdown of responses by grade to the question of whether families will send their students back for hybrid learning. So again, the numbers lead toward yes, so the blue is the yes and the red is the no. And I do want to just bring up, because it might look counterintuitive, that the kindergarten and pre-K are actually at the ends of the chart and not the beginning. So you see 1 through 12 and then kindergarten and pre-K. So one exception was actually really interesting, was grade 12, that we had not expected. So in grade 12, where 55% of our respondents actually said no. But to date, grade 12 has actually garnered the least amount of responses. So that was, also somewhat surprising to us. We do hope that the number again increases in the coming days, but the highest percentage of yes responses was actually in 11th grade at 61%. So this next slide shows that our English learning families are strongly in favor of returning for hybrid learning. So this is a case of the data kind of backing up what we clearly heard anecdotally, especially during the LPAC meetings we talked about earlier. So, not surprisingly, remote learning does create different challenges for our different students, and especially for our English learners. So these students do stand to greatly benefit from having the chance to return to classrooms for instruction and for learning. This next chart provides a breakdown of the results by language. So again, 72% of our Portuguese families indicated that they would send their students back to school in February if we were to return. And that was the highest percentage of the 4 sets of results. So this is a noticeably higher difference than what we saw in the other language groups. So overall, the percentage breakdown clearly favors yes over no amongst our 3 primary native languages or home languages, while those who filled out the survey in English were almost 50-50. And so again, I think that that's a very interesting and telling data point to consider as we're thinking about our programming moving forward. So in this next chart, again, ultimately, when we return to hybrid, one of the things that we will be voting on this evening is dividing the students into 2 groups, with group A attending school on Monday and Tuesday and group B attending on Thursday and Friday. And for those of you who do remember the reopening plan that we approved at the beginning of the school year that did include a return to hybrid, in that original reopening plan, it did have an alternating weekly schedule. So this is one of the main changes that we did want to highlight for you all and for families that we wanted approval of, because as we see it, our school reopening plan does pretty much stand as it already is. We've obviously changed the dates and some of the main tenets of the plan, and this being one of them. So the only exception to this would be our high needs students who would be able to specific populations of our high need students who would be able to attend the 4 days, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, but everybody else would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And this is a model that we've seen in other districts. This was a model we actually, when we discussed with the ETA about should we stick with the alternating week model, should we go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, the overwhelming response was that a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday model would be more desirable. And again, while we cannot guarantee learning groups, we did ask if families had a preference for sending their student to school on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays and Fridays. We did hear overwhelmingly from other districts who have already gone back to hybrid that if they could do it over again, rather than assigning like the preferences, that they would have asked, because after the fact, there ended up being a lot of juggling that they had to do. So we wanted to just go ahead and get family preferences to start and try to honor them as best as we can, even if we can't guarantee it. So the clear favorite is the Mondays and Tuesdays. 609 families prefer this schedule as opposed to 335 for Thursdays and Fridays. 303 families expressed no preference, and the high number of blank responses is due to the fact that families who said they were not going to be participating in hybrid learning were asked not to answer this question for obvious reasons. The percentage of people who chose group B and those who indicated that they had no preference, we're fairly close in number. And so we do hope that this will allow us to place families in their desired group, although again, we're unable to guarantee a specific placement because a lot of it also has to do based on scheduling in the school, especially at the high school level. But we will use this information appropriately, especially as it relates to issues such as families with siblings in different schools and older students who have caregiving responsibilities. This is also a good time to remind everyone that in this model where we're not alternating weekly, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday is the alternating, that Wednesdays would be a full remote learning day for all students, and that would be an opportunity to thoroughly clean our schools and learning spaces on a weekly basis. The final question that we asked, which is really valuable to our planning concerns, the testing initiatives that we will be discussing later as an extra measure of safety for when we return. So specifically, we asked families if they were willing to share their students' information with a third party that will oversee rapid testing on behalf of the district. An overwhelming 1,310 respondents, or 64%, did say yes, compared to the 746 who did say no. So this is encouraging, and this response is going to be helpful as we implement and carry out a robust testing program. So to that point of testing, when our hybrid model is up and running, we are planning to take advantage of two testing initiatives. One is for pool testing, and the second is for rapid testing. So pool testing will be available over the first 6 weeks of our launch. Actually, it will be available for the full, it's going to be available at no cost to us for first 6 weeks of our launch through DESE. And then we have committed that we are going to be financing it for the totality of a hybrid model or in-person instruction. So schools will be provided test kits, support, and the necessary software to do this, again, at the start at no cost to our district. So the process involves the batching of anywhere between 5 and 25 swabs in one tube. And if the pool test does yield a positive, then everyone in that pool will then take a rapid test or a reflex test. So for a rapid or reflex testing, the city has submitted an application for EPS to participate in a program called Binax Now, which is also being offered through DESE. So this rapid or antigen testing performs best when a person's viral load is highest, which is typically at the earliest stages of infection when patients are symptomatic. So people who are test positive are asked to take this molecular test, and these tests, which return results within 15 minutes, are particularly useful. So that we can reduce the spread of the virus and protect our vulnerable populations. So in general, the antigen tests have a high specificity, which is the test's ability to correctly generate a negative result for people who do not have the condition you are testing for. So these two tests put together, the pool testing is our surveillance testing for our teachers and staff, and then accompanied with the rapid testing for any pools that come back positive, we think are going to prove very effective in making sure that we are having a safe return to school. So obviously a considerable amount of coordination will go into administering the vaccine to staff and testing larger groups of students. And to this end, again, we are exploring the hiring of COVID-19 managers in order to oversee this effort. But we are very excited, enthusiastic about this opportunity to be able to provide this as, again, another extra measure to support a safe return. So this brings us to, I think, what people are most interested in this evening, which is our framework for a phased-in approach to hybrid learning. And it is based on two major and recent developments. One is the availability of vaccine, and two is our collaboration with the city of Everett in choosing to prioritize our educators in the vaccine rollout. So clearly the vaccine is far and away the most critical variable in our decision to explore transitioning from nearly full remote to hybrid. So we have been very cautious to date as Everett's COVID numbers have been persistently high. And it was not until a vaccine was released that we began to consider these changes. You know, I'm really proud of this considerable effort to include vaccine clinics as part of our official hybrid reopening plan. And I truly believe that we are going above and beyond on this front, as we've always promised to do. We've been conservative, and then we've superseded. So we are truly grateful for the support of the city, of Mayor DeMaria, his chief of staff, Aaron Devaney, local DPH, Sabrina Farrakano, who have been working tirelessly to make this possible for us. So this is a very tentative schedule that, again, is predicated on the availability of the vaccine. So we believe these phasers are ordered correctly and efficiently. And overall, we believe this plan is measured and, again, consistent with our overall approach to education throughout the pandemic. So we've divided the plan into 4 phases. Phase 1 is a vaccine clinic, which I'll talk more about for our educators and staff. And I'll talk about that again shortly. And that would be round 1 of the vaccination. Phase 2, we are going to set aside 2 days somewhere within there. And again, this is pending negotiations with the Everett Teachers Association and the approval of this committee, that teachers will participate in full day professional development days in advance of starting the hybrid classes. So very similar to how we did for remote learning. So again, to kind of get out our hybrid guidance in the same way that we did our remote, making sure that all of the policies, protocols, and procedures are very well understood by our teachers. And making sure that classes are prepared, everything is ready to go. So our hope is to adjust the calendar so that there will be no school on these days, either in person or remote, so we can prepare to return. Phase 3, and as a result of negotiations with the union, we have determined that our educators will receive the second dose of vaccination. So the second dose comes 28 days after the first dose. Before phase 4, where students will be transitioning back to school for hybrid learning. So again, you'll notice that there are no specific dates on here, and that again, the dates will be contingent upon the actual rollout and supply of the vaccine, which again, the city is working really hard to get us as many as possible, as quickly as possible, but we know that some of these things are out of our control, out of the city's control. So as soon as we have confirmation on our supply, we'll be able to put some dates on paper, speak with the ETA, and release a firmer timeline. But this kind of gives you an idea of what the methodology and framework is. When we bring back students, we will be, transitioning them back. One of the health advisory, one of their main advisements has been to, when we do come back to hybrid, to come back slowly. And again, in our original hybrid plan, our reopening plan, we had planned to kind of come back everybody all at once. So all 50% of the students, 100% of the time. Instead, here we are going to be tiering the students. So the first group of students to return would be our students who are in some substantially separate special education classes. After that, we would be bringing in K-2, grade 12, and then followed slowly in by a transition after that, again, while always watching the numbers and the trends, which hopefully by the time a second vaccine has come around and we returned, that we're hoping those numbers will look very different from how they look now. And again, I think the plan overall, again, the vaccine is integral to this plan. And actually, I was very happy to see today that the Commonwealth Magazine and the Massachusetts Teachers Association actually recognized Everett for prioritizing educators amongst their vaccine initiatives, which is something that the MTA is actually pushing for around the state. So I think we're kind of like ahead of the curve on that, and really trying to make sure that our educators have the ability to come back safely. Again, as I've mentioned, it is also worth remembering that our original school reopening plan that came out in August was approved in September and did call for the hybrid learning to begin in November. And again, we had decided to postpone that because the numbers were getting higher and there was no vaccine at the time. But we've always had our eye on bringing back students to school to the greatest extent possible. And we have been steadfast in our stance that COVID-19 does demand constant assessing and reassessing. And right now we finally see a path before us to hybrid learning. And I do believe it would be a mistake not to take it. Also, I just wanted to mention that our school reopening plan back from August, a lot of the questions I've been hearing are actually reflected in that document about hybrid learning, what it would look like. There are some areas where it said we would be exploring certain things. So in our next version of that, it will state the things that we were exploring, what the actual determination is, again, pending those conversations and determinations with the union. So there is still work to be done, but at least I'm hoping that this will provide some clarity on what we're looking at as a phased out model. In this next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about the vaccine clinics. So our first one that we are planning with the city of Everett is for Saturday, February 6th. And our hope is to vaccinate 300 or more staff members on that day. And our clinic is going to utilize the best practices of the similar vaccine clinics that have been held over the past several weeks in Massachusetts. And specifically, our goal is to have 6 or 7 registered nurses staffing the clinic and administering the vaccine. This will also include nurses from the city of Everett, as well as 3 nurses who are part of our EPS faculty. We will have our staff register for designated time slots. And the aim is for each nurse to administer 1 dose of the Moderna vaccine every 5 minutes. So when after a person receives the vaccine, they will wait in a designated area for 15 minutes, and staff from Contaldo Ambulance will also be on hand to support the effort as well. We are looking to hold more vaccine clinics as we roll out the hybrid learning. Our best hope is to have the ability to administer second doses, in best case scenario at the beginning of March, again, dependent on the supply of the vaccine, perhaps a little later than that, but those timelines will come out as soon as we have those numbers. And I want to reiterate, though, that the presence of the testing and the vaccines, even together, by no means will allow us to lower our guard on any of the best practices in reducing the spread of coronavirus. So when we begin hybrid classes, we will continue to mandate face coverings, hand washing. As we said in our school reopening plan back in August, we're still maintaining the 6 feet of social distancing. So all of those things will remain constant. So we do want to just remind everyone that those things will stay in place. So we're adding extra precautions. We are not taking them away. And that we will also want to remind everyone, and we did in this survey too, to remind everyone to exercise caution, not sending students to school if they were showing any symptoms. We are going to have thermometers at the doors to take temperatures as well. So all of the recommendations that we have been receiving from our various stakeholders are going to be implemented, and that hybrid guidance will be going out that includes all of the details of that. Plus, we will also be communicating it out slowly as well. And so we believe that these measures, taken together, represent a workable hybrid plan for our students and staff. In the next slide, just wanted to do a quick look too, just so that you all have a frame of reference as you're making these considerations of what other districts are doing. So our proposal is not counter to what, we see several other districts doing, even in the face of high COVID-19 metrics. So of the 20 communities with the highest incident rates per 100,000, 9 are in a mostly hybrid setting. And of the 20 communities with the highest rates of percent positivity, because again, those are different metrics, 10 are hybrid. hybrid. And among urban communities closest to Everett, Medford and Peabody are hybrid, while Malden is slated to start the hybrid rollout next week. So again, really, I think this just speaks to the fact that every city and every district has to do what's right for them. And so I think that we see that there's evidence on either side for how we roll this out. So finally, and this brings us to item 2 and 3 on the agenda, but I want to revisit these slides and then come back to questions, and then we'll come to those votes. I wanted to be very clear about what I'm specifically asking for tonight in the revised reopening. So what I'm asking for tonight is the approval of 3 revisions to our original school reopening plan, 2 of which are rather modest, and again, have come from discussions that we've had with the ETA, with our COVID-19 response team. And then the third, which is, we believe an innovative and exciting opportunity for us to accelerate our return more safely than we had ever previously imagined. So the first change is that we will, like I mentioned, not have students alternate between remote and in-person learning on a weekly basis, and instead students will come to school on Mondays and Tuesdays or on Thursdays and Fridays. The second change to the plan that you previously approved would be changing, rather than bringing all students back at once for hybrid, that we would be bringing back by groups and grades, not all at once again across the entire district. And that is as a result of our COVID-19 response task force and the medical professionals who recommended that. And then lastly, our transition to hybrid being contingent upon the distribution of the vaccine, which of course means it could be sooner or later dependent on that timeline. But again, these are up to discussion and for you to determine if this is something you want to vote in favor of or not. And then the last is the third item on the agenda is revising the EPS school calendar. So that is the next item on the agenda. The next slide. So here, we are also seeking approval, again, contingent upon our negotiations with the Everett Teachers Association, that there may be a change to the EPS district calendar. And again, we don't have the timeline yet, but I wanted to give everybody a heads up that this would enable us to extend the school year by 2 days, again, depending on when hybrid learning begins. And it would also allow us to explore the possibility of scheduling those aforementioned 2 full days of professional development, which we would need in order to prepare for hybrid learning. So, before I open it up for discussion, I just, feel compelled to say that the, decision to proceed to hybrid learning does spring from our most fundamental of premises, and that is what works best for the Everett Public Schools and what works best for our students, what meets our obligations to DESE, which of course we cannot ignore. And I believe our approach shows restraint on behalf of our staff, but while advocating also for students and families, which is the balance that we would like to strike. And I know that we can't pull the curtain and magically wipe away all of the COVID-19 fears from the stage. I recognize that opinions about how to best educate our students continue to be a matter of intense debate, and we will be continuing those conversations and nailing down those details. But as I referenced at the outset, I don't believe that we should be idle when we do have the opportunity to move forward. I do believe we have the opening that we need to pursue, and the survey data that we share does show that many of our families, even given the current circumstances and without notice of a vaccination or we're interested in returning. And I do feel that we need to be responsive to that as well. And obviously, as you all know, that DESE is advocating for as much in-person learning as possible. And as we've heard, some of our most vulnerable students need in-person services. And one of the statistics that continues to be quoted by DESE is a 30% increase in self-harm across the state. And so these are things that we also want to make sure that we are keeping in the forefront of our minds as we make our determinations. So with that, I would like to open it up. I know I've given a lot of information for discussion, for questions, and then we can take those 2 items, item number 2 and item number 3 separately. But I wanted you to be aware of them so that they could also be a part of this discussion.
Okay, so with that, members, if you have any questions, please use the raise your hand button. And with that, I have 2 so far, which is Ms. Lambert will go first, and Ms. Sani will follow up with the questioning afterwards. So, Mrs. Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Madam Superintendent. Actually, my first question was about the student enrollment. Typically in the winter, in January, I believe, we see the EL population, we see a rise in new enrollments. Have we seen that, or do you think that with COVID restrictions, my concern is that folks are out there and that we haven't been able to reach them, and if they're new to our community. So I just want to make sure that it's something we have our eye on.
So yes, we do have our eye on it. We don't have any conclusive evidence right now. We are hoping that an easier registration system that has, multiple language access may be a better way to outreach to them, because we are wondering that too, how many students are just out there and not really accounted for yet. So I will continue to report back on that to let you know how our January numbers are looking. I know that even in the past few years, there's been some up and down with that, given, the immigration policies and other things have been variable. So it will be interesting to see how COVID plays into that too. And we will certainly report back.
I appreciate that. And then as far as Thursday, Friday versus week on, week off, have any districts done the week on, week off?
So we've only heard of a few and again, if anybody here knows, please feel free to chime in because I by no means know what every single district is doing, but the only ones that we know of are ones that were Catholic schools or so not any of the public schools. And I'll be honest, originally, I kind of thought that the week on, week off made more sense. But the feedback we've received has been more that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and the majority of districts around us are doing it. But again, and this is why that is up for vote, if the will of this committee is to look at that further or to vote against that, those are certainly, that's why I wanted feedback from this committee on that.
Just on that, I'd be curious just from a parent outreach, and I know, you don't want to give too many choices that aren't actual choices, but I think there's a few implications. One is the impact it has on pandemic EBT. So if you are out a certain number of school days, or if you're not out a certain number of school days, it has an impact on that. But then also for planning purposes,
Oh, I think I lost you for planning, right after for planning purposes.
Hmm.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So that, and because of the impact that going hybrid will have on the e-learning centers, I'm wondering if, partnering with FKO, if they would be able to do a week on with a full day versus 2 days with so that's kind of my thought process.
That's a great question, because we have reached out to them about could they absorb students from their e-learning centers, which they have responded to positively, but we still have more discussions with them to have. We did not, though, ask them about would it be easier for them to make that, to absorb if they were doing a week on, week off. And some of the other things that we have heard from the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday is we actually even heard of districts that did Monday, Thursday, one cohort, and Tuesday, Friday. And when we asked about that, because we thought that the Wednesday, the point of that was the thorough cleaning, was that people wanted the teachers wanted more touch points with students more regularly during the week than having so much time pass. So that was another one of the things that we heard about the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday model versus the alternating weeks, because so much time passes without having seen students. So that is one of the things that we also heard, but I do think that that's something we should look into further.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And then just a final comment. And I know that, this is a scary time for a lot of people. There's a lot of emotion and, but your strategy, and I think our strategy as a whole has been to look at everything, all the possibilities, and begin the plan so that when we're ready to go, we're ready to go. And I know that, sometimes bits and pieces, I think it's a learning opportunity for us. Maybe the survey caused more questions than it answered. So maybe we can look at it a different way. We've never been through a pandemic before. We're going to make mistakes. So I thank the teachers, the parents, all the community members that have reached out, as many teachers that have reached out. I've also, over the last several weeks, had parents reach out with heartbreaking stories. And I know we all know them. I'm a parent. I also know how much the teachers have done above and beyond any expectation. So we are listening, we hear you. We are going to make mistakes. And I'm not even saying that that was a mistake, maybe just intention wasn't impact. So just a learning opportunity, that's what I'll call it. And, but thank you for the strategy. Thank the city for partnering with us. I think this is important and important conversations to come.
Yes, and I fully appreciate that. I think that one of the things that we have learned, and we're still trying to strike the right balance of, is how do you make sure to be open, transparent, and collaborative while also not getting many mixed messages out to families, because we put out some draft of a plan, then it started being said it was the plan, and while we're still in the process of having that collaborative discussion, and then you get more nervous about then releasing parts of the plan because you don't want to add more confusion. So we're still trying to strike that balance, and I definitely appreciate that comment, because I do think we could have done better on that, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do a better job of making sure that communication is streamlined in a way that's not confusing and not providing misinformation or undue anxiety, to families, staff, and the entire community, when what we're really doing is still trying to take in the information and inform and make sure our rough draft of our plan and the stages of the plan are, being really thought out.
The plus side is learning to do this at the most heightened time, when, like you said, emotions are running high. Means we're going to be fantastic at it once we get back to normal life. So there is a silver lining. And thank you. I'm all.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sani is next, followed by Ms. Cadillo, and then Mr. Aprazay.
Thank you. Through you to the chair, through the superintendent. As you can see that we had a lot of emails and also call-ins regarding the teachers. Was ETA involved with this plan and discussion with the teachers, so they're aware of what's going on?
So yes, so we had an initial meeting with the leadership on January 7th, and then they gave feedback to the plan that we implemented into changes. And then I had just a meeting with the next version of the draft, because I wanted to see initial reactions with just the president and the vice president. And sorry, the one with the leadership also included the MTA. So then it was, I think, 2 days later that we had a meeting with just the president and the vice president. Then the next following week, I believe Miss Lambert was part of, as she's part of that team. We had a meeting with the negotiations committee, and I believe that was on a Tuesday night of the following week. So the next week of January, after January 7th. And then we had our medical advisory meeting, or the COVID response task force meeting, that we did have Kim Auger at. At that meeting, I did ask all of the questions or voiced the concerns that I thought I had heard from the ETA and other family stakeholders. And then I did also provide, Kim, who is also here tonight, the ETA president, the ability to ask any further questions that there were. And I did in the negotiations team meeting too, let them know that they would be privy to any plans ahead of time. Again, we don't have a timeline, and that will be given to them and discussed with them before. So really what we're just talking about right now is the framework of the plan, which I did tell them at the negotiations committee would be dependent upon vaccinations. And that was where we had actually heard conversation about wanting the second vaccine, because we had brought the first vaccine with an 80% effectiveness as that being our proposal. It was met with second vaccine would be better. The COVID-19 response team agreed, obviously, the second vaccine is going to be better. You have 80% or 97% effectiveness. And then when and then again, we had another meeting today, the mayor, myself, and the president of the ETA to kind of not finalize, but to again reiterate that we are all on board with that second vaccination, because again, much of this is dependent upon, the incredible collaboration of the city and being able to prioritize our teachers both in the first and the second dose. So, since the city is able, willing, supportive of it, we were able to present that we could collectively agree to that when we met today.
Okay, the question I have is, the teachers that you mentioned at the last meeting, you said roughly 24 you thought maybe wouldn't come back and we'd have to hire maybe 24 additional. Does that number still stand, roughly around 24 may not come back?
I thought I said 40.
Oh, 40?
I don't.
It's 40. Oh, okay, I apologize. Okay, so my question is on this. If the teachers that do not come back because of medical reason, can they still teach remotely from home, or do they not have that option, and will they get paid or not get paid?
So the regulations for leaves are pretty, are pretty prescriptive. So, and we follow the guidelines that are given to us. So for example, FMLA is really not at our discretion. It is at the discretion of like what legally falls under FMLA. So you have to have legal medical documentation to determine if you are eligible for FMLA. And if you are eligible for FMLA and you have the sick leave, then that would be paid time. There's also provisions in certain contracts. And again, this is also very determined by which unit you're in. So there are some individuals or employees who may not be eligible for FMLA based on the number of hours they work that are in their contract. Because again, FMLA is prescribed by those outside of the Everett Public Schools. We have to follow those regulations. So it really depends, but then there are also within different contracts leaves that are available. So that may be a leave that's unpaid, but it could be a leave that you could determine to take. But again, I caution saying everybody or everything, because it is determined based on the unit that you're in.
The question also I have is, did we send out letters to the parents at home regarding if they wanted the kids to come back on hybrid, or was it only on your Zoom meetings that you had that you did the study? Or was it a letters going home to all the parents?
So it was a letter with the survey that went out. It went out by our robocall, on our text. It's on our website now. And then also the school principals pushed it out as well, I believe. So we did sort of kind of the way we've been doing all our communications, which is multiple modes of trying to get, we also provided it out. We're starting to use some of the other platforms like WhatsApp, like the platforms that some of our other linguistic communities use more often than texting. So we're trying to kind of broaden our reach and make sure that we're getting as many as possible. So for example, when we saw there were even fewer Haitian Creole responses, we were trying to figure out, okay, how can we make sure we increase that? And we found that WhatsApp is a more utilized method of communication. So we're utilizing that. However, another way we're disaggregating the data, again, because we want to make sure we're getting the most participation, is that we do have many Haitian Creole speaking families that are actually answering in English. So another way that we're kind of breaking down the data just to make sure we're getting representative figures is, it may have been a survey that we received in English, but is it from a family where the preferred language is something else, so that we can, again, make sure we're getting representative groups.
Okay. The other question I had in the beginning, can they teach at home if they cannot make it to the school to teach in person? Can they do that?
No. So to start, you would have to apply for a leave if we're all returning to in-person learning. So if it's hybrid, then teachers need to be in the buildings. One of the possibilities for allowing a remote academy with teachers who teach remotely is if we were to go back full in person. So that's a discussion that I have had with the negotiations team, is that then that could be a consideration if everybody was back 100% of us in person, and there's still that group of students who are going to choose remote for the rest of the year, that then we could potentially explore that. But for now, in order to, it's difficult to make that that guarantee to all staff. And again, they would have to go through HR if they're available for accommodations. That's a different thing, but that's not a blanket guarantee that we could give. No.
Roughly, how many kids do we have in the e-learning total right now?
So we have about 400 enrolled, but we have an attendance rate of about 200 per day. Now, again, the enrollees, we do have families that are enrolled to attend certain days and not others. So the amount of 200 is about what we get of those enrollees every day.
The mayor mentioned something in the beginning when we had the public participation, which I think was a good suggestion, was having a meeting with a Zoom meeting with everyone from the community, the Teachers Association, the teachers. And I think that'd be something we should do right away, maybe, next week if we could, try to put this together so we can all be on the same page. Because it sounds like, the teachers were not aware of this, what's going on. And maybe it was last minute, but I think given a week, they can absorb what you presented and see what other input they have. And I'd like to hear from them too. Maybe they have some other suggestions as well to get them back into hybrid model and get the kids back to school. But that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
And as I mentioned, we are going to be having those Q&A sessions. We do need some more time to talk to the union and the negotiations team before we're prepared to answer some of those questions, because we also don't want to get too many questions that we don't have the answers to as well. Because as I mentioned before, we did have pretty robust planning and steering committees over the summer that included a wide array of stakeholders, and they drafted plans that I do think that we shouldn't be disregarding entirely. I don't think we should be starting from square one when we had gotten so far in the process. So I definitely appreciate that. We absolutely want feedback. I do believe we're taking in feedback. I don't believe this was last minute because, again, this is a process. And so this is not the first of the communications that's going to go out around this. But of course, these communications also can't be made until we have school committee approval.
Thank you.
Ms. Cadello.
Not working.
You're muted, Millie.
Yeah. I said the host had to unmute me. It's all set now. Okay. I have some questions. I have a couple that are my own. I have others that have been asked of me to ask. And the reason that I had said no the first time we were going to extend public participation was because after having that 15-20 minutes to peruse the presentation you were making tonight, I thought it better that we let you talk first and then people could ask questions after. And I know they can't tonight, but they can at least email you to get answers, because I think you answered a lot of the concerns that were out there. One of the biggest problems that I saw was, although very impressed with the solidarity from the ETA with 400 and somewhat emails today, but I'm concerned because a lot of people expressed they're very upset about the lack of communication. And I know that this administration has promoted transparency and equity from day one. So people are questioning what the actual word means when it comes to the school committee or the administration when we say the word transparency. And when I tell people that I really don't know, and I've told you this in emails and in text, I honestly tell people, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to say it right now on Zoom. I don't know, because things will change. So you could give us a draft of what you're thinking of, but within 5 minutes or an hour, or by the next day, it changes. So if I tell, Mr. X that, oh, well, the superintendent's talking about this, and then something else comes out, it looks like I made that up. So I just do not say anything until it is rolled out. But here is the biggest problem. There was some confusion with people thought that you were conversing with the ETA. The ETA was saying you weren't conversing with them, and there was so much confusion there. So therefore, our teachers, and then it trickles down to our parents, were very confused as to what was going on and thought things were going on that actually obviously or not. Like things were being etched in stone, that we were going to hear a rollout plan tonight, and we were starting school tomorrow, I guess, because people were that concerned. So we need to do something to make that better. And I know, and again, like I feel, I can't repeat what's on a draft because it's just that, a draft. But I think there should be, I know you talk about this negotiation team. I'm not sure who's on your negotiation team. I know that for the school committee, it's Samantha and Cynthia and I, but I know Cynthia and I haven't been privy to any of these things. But when you speak of negotiation teams, I'm assuming you're meaning like the ETA negotiations teams. So if they're on there, then if they could just give their people enough information, not etched in stone, and people have to remember during this unprecedented time, nothing is etched in stone until it actually is, and then can be rolled back again anyway. So I think communication isn't just lacking with us, I think it's lacking throughout. And I think what's happened is so many people, as I think Samantha eloquently put it, this is a time when everyone is upset. And it's gone on so long. When this first started, I don't think we really anticipate. I remember talking to you last summer, looking forward to going back to school, even in a hybrid mode in September, and then all bets were off. Then it was November, all bets were off. You know, so we're not there yet. We know we're moving towards it, even if it's crawling. We are moving towards it, and it's what we have to do at the right time. But I do want to, and let me thank you for letting me say that. But what I do want to say is, I have a question. This is mine. What outreach efforts are we making as a district? What are we using to engage our students that have a lot of absences? How are we trying to help them to come to school on Zoom?
So as I've mentioned in previous presentations, we've actually been doing individualized outreach to those students. And then we had a list of about 13 students who had not ever engaged, and we were continually engaging them, and we were able to whittle that down to 5. So we have been, it's been an ongoing effort. We had the advisories that we created at the beginning of the year, where each educator, and that was beyond teachers, were assigned to a certain number of students that they were to keep in touch with. The principals have tracking sheets for the contacts that have been made. So we are continuing with those same strategies that I had mentioned at the beginning of the year. And in other presentations after that as well. And to your point about communicating out, I do want to state that it is my responsibility to get approval from this group before I can broadly communicate out changes to the full teaching community. So while I appreciate that, I'm not totally sure where the disconnect was. There definitely was talk of the vaccination. Obviously, we were nailing down details with the city. However, I mean, it was even in the Independent. So we were trying to get the information out while not making guarantees. And the negotiations team had been talked about a waterfall in with the vaccinations. So I'm not exactly sure, but again, we can't print something that then runs contrary to a plan that has already been approved by this committee. And so that's why I was reluctant to be emailing out to teachers anything that, again, number one, could change, 2, that we're still receiving feedback on from their own leadership and their own negotiations team, and the medical advisory. So we've honestly maintained the same strategy throughout. I'm not sure, again, I think communication is hard in a time like this. It's like the chicken and the egg. Who do you communicate with first? And then honestly, I've learned once you communicate with one person, everybody knows anyway. So then it's like the message gets out and gets twisted and turned, and there's a plan that I didn't even know was official being called an official plan. So as we're still trying to talk and collaborate, so I'm not totally sure, and I'm open to suggestions about how to solve that. Because I don't know, and hopefully we'll get better at it. I am committed to improving that over time so that we don't have the same communication or feeling of disenfranchisement from our staff who, I thought this entire time had been heard. We received all of the suggestions from the ETA before when we started remote learning, and we implemented every single one in our plan and through our steering committees. A lot of the professional development we did had directly come off of their suggestions. And if there are any other items that they want to put on the table, I've definitely let them know to please do so. I think we've been very responsive. I think we've been very respectful. And if anything, I think we have been amongst the most conservative in our return back. So I don't know why that would change and why we would be any more, why we wouldn't be taking a very slow and steady and thoughtful approach.
Thank you for that. Last week on the Portuguese speaking, essay, which was very interesting, by the way. Not that I speak or understand Portuguese, but the translation was perfect. So I knew I couldn't do the other 2 nights, so I chose that one and it was good. But I asked a question then that I'd like to ask you now, because people are still confused and they're guessing at what it's going to look like. So would you please explain what our students' day will look like as they enter into hybrid? Beyond just wearing masks, distancing, what does that day look like when they start and finish lunch, exercise, anything like that?
So yes, and a lot of these were in the school reopening plan that we put out, and we'll revise it and put it out again. It does mention lunches, it mentions cohorts staying together, it mentions, our social distancing, the hand washing, the hand sanitizing stations in every class. For the hybrid learning, it is going to be that we have the technology in place in our classrooms, that we would have students live and online. So that is the model that we have seen in pretty much every district, reason being that it is, and if anybody has ideas about how to do this, that's the best staffing model. It's difficult to staff anything differently than having both. But again, if the union is able or anybody's able to put forward a model that is different, that we are able to staff, able to fund, to please do so. But that's the model that we've seen used by other districts. We have been visiting other districts and seen it in place. And I know that it sounds very scary. I know that it sounds really intimidating. My own sister is a teacher, and she was like, they started it back in September, and she was very upset about having to do it, I remember, and I was like nervous for her. Turns out, like, even the remote learning, I heard a lot of anxiety from teachers in the beginning, as I would expect, because it's a very scary model to be launching. And I think that we're kind of seeing the exact same thing with the hybrid. And I think that, again, I do have a lot of faith in what I've seen in our teachers, that we will be able to go in. Once the anticipation is going to be worse than the actual practice, once we get in there, we'll be able to see, troubleshoot any issues and make it work. And again, with the important piece being that we're able to then provide further access to our families who we know, that this isn't working, like that. I've heard the exact same wonderful things about remote learning, but I've also heard some heartbreaking stories too. And we need to make sure that we're not letting an entire year go by with schools having that kind of students having that kind of experience, if we have the ability to bring them into buildings.
Now, will our teachers be working a 5-day week in our buildings, or would they take Wednesday off and just do remote from home?
The Wednesday remote day buildings would be empty of anybody except for our custodians for cleaning.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, people were confused about that, and I did not have an answer. Okay, and now here's the big question. 2, actually. Are we going to continue with our e-learning centers, and is there going to be an after-school program so that children can go to school, either hybrid or stay remote in an e-learning center and continue on the way we've been going? How is this going to work?
So no, we will be unable to staff e-learning centers alongside a hybrid model where we're instructing students that are both at home and in school. So our paras will be back in classrooms, supporting students, supporting breakout rooms, as they're already doing, but we wouldn't have folks to support our e-learning centers. And so, I'm really happy that we were able to provide the e-learning centers, but admittedly, that is a sacrifice we make in returning to hybrid for sure. And we did hear from families, again, there's only about 200 that are utilizing it on a daily basis out of our 7,000, but we did hear from families that it has been useful. We also heard from other families that, they have used it. It wasn't, they still need the in-person doing. I think we heard from somebody on public comment tonight that said that. That they still need the in-person instruction. So that is unfortunately one of the trade-offs that we're going to have to make. As far as after-school programming to start, no, we're not going to be able to provide after-school programming. And in the same way, we're kind of transitioning things in slowly and going to watch the numbers. Even after vaccines, we're going to have to take the same approach to any extended opportunities outside of school as well. And what we would hope to start with is our extracurricular activities.
Okay, now I know that Ms. Lambert had brought up FKO, and you said you had reached out to them. Is there any possibility, if we can work with them, that we could continue with them, allowing them to do the e-learning center or just the after-school program? Even if it's not in our schools, if the mayor so allows them to still stay at Pope John?
So I think we'd have to figure out the transportation to and from. So again, that would be up to FKO if they're able to do that. But in our buildings, we are gonna actually, for cleaning purposes, even though there will be some lingering afterwards, we are gonna have some pretty strong times on when people need to be out of buildings so we can start the cleaning process.
And that's why I was saying that if they stayed completely remote from us, but you're right, that brings in the transportation issue if there is one.
Right.
Okay. I know I have more, but if any of my colleagues, I will definitely, the rest of what I have are things that have been brought up to me in those emails, which we're all aware of. And maybe we can get some answers, but I will yield to my colleagues because I've had the floor for so long.
Okay, next is Mr. Aprizay, followed by Mrs. Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, to the superintendent, through the superintendent, to pretty much everybody out there. A public comment tonight, I got a chill up my spine when one of the early comments was that students will die. I believe it was one, and then there'll be another. This is just, I'm a lot older than pretty much everybody here, but this is just a horrible time. My wife has a cousin that was in Italy during the war when the Nazis were in Germany. He told me, we're in Italy, and he told me, Tom, this is very simple. Just shut the schools down. Just shut the schools down completely until this whole thing passes. And I said to him that, in theory, that sounds so simple, but especially today, there are a lot of kids going through a lot of things that, either we didn't know about or they weren't going through back in the 40s. So, and I wish there were easy solutions. But along those same lines, I'm going to give my daughter-in-law credit for, I saw on social media, congressmen and senators, after what happened at the Capitol building, said, geez, I didn't realize I'd be risking my life coming to work. And I know she said, welcome to being a teacher, being in my world after some of the violence and some of the crazy things and, probably a lot of stuff that never gets written that happens in schools that quite frankly, now today we sort of take for granted. I have no more respect for any profession there is than a teacher. Anybody who's ever heard me comment about my upbringing with the great teachers I had in Everett that, they're just fantastic, literally changed my life. But the bottom line is that I believe with this plan, with the hope of the vaccine, everything, again, I think that's what has to be everybody be put at ease with is, nobody's going to be putting a gun to anybody's head to say, you have to do this, you have to do that. There's still going to be choices. It sounds like it, again, from the superintendent's perspective, it's going to be a conservative effort in terms of getting back into school. And believe me, I understand the hybrid learning, there's issues with it, but again, from personal experience, I've got a niece and nephew in Melrose. Last year when it was strictly virtual, my older nephew, who's a terrific student, told me he would just flick on his computer. He was there, did not pay attention at all from March till the end of last school year. They're in the hybrid learning, and he's back to doing his thing, doing well in school again. And that's personal. The other personal thing is I happen to work for the Department of Correction. Yeah, the courts are virtual, but trust me, the prisons are open. I have to go to the prisons. I mean, maybe I'm different. I don't feel like I'm risking my life when I'm going in there. Maybe I am, but it's just part of just trying to get on with life. Appreciate the educators' comments. It appears if I just roughly took my own from our poll, it's the vast majority of students, well, at least the parents speaking on behalf of the students, want the students to be back in school. And most of the people tonight that were educators are sort of against it. I hope it's the against going through this process sort of haphazardly. I hope what it is with the vaccine, with whatever, with all the safeguards, I hope that the educators are looking forward to going back to school. Last thing, from a personal standpoint, I've got a grandson that I do the virtual with. And I'll tell you, I mean, he's 4. It's very, very difficult to keep his attention there. And I mean, personally, I'm praying when I can be driving him back and dropping him off at the Adams School again. That's what I'm hoping for. As his teacher said the other day, you know, I think Papa's hoping you take a nap until you're about 6 years old. And believe me, that's sort of the way it's been. But I don't mean that, Jason. I don't mean that, but that's how it's coming across. So again, I'm hoping this all works out. I'm hoping we're doing the right thing. Last thing, through Chairman to Mr. Mayor, again, I know the superintendent talked in terms of the vaccines. I mean, is there even an approximation as to when we're looking at the vaccines for the educators? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, we'll know tomorrow. Sometime tomorrow, our request for the first 200 doses for our educators. And I think we have a good plan in place to ask for the vaccines over a course of a short while. And I think the vaccines are there. I think the state just wants to see us not allow this vaccine to go to waste. So they have our plan. They're evaluating our plan, and we hope to have an answer tomorrow regarding the first 200 vaccines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chairman, I yield back to whoever else would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aprizay. Up next is Mrs. Murray.
Thank you very much to the superintendent and the mayor through the chair. The first thing I'd like to say is, as an educator, I really value the collaboration that I've seen between the mayor and the superintendent in terms of getting vaccines for the Everett Public Schools staff. I think that a lot of districts are not discussing vaccinations at this point for their staffs. And a lot of cities are not putting educators first. So thank you, Mayor DiMaria. Thank you, Superintendent Tahiliani. That's really important. I know the district that I work in is not, we haven't solidified yet vaccines for staff, for teaching staff. So I know what that means. In terms of that, with the 28-day window between the first and second vaccine, it looks like even at fastest rollout, we're probably talking about, and I'm only stating this as a rough number, so that parents can be put at ease that they have some time to think about what they want to do. It sounds like the earliest rollout for going hybrid would probably be sometime in mid-March. Is that correct, Superintendent Giuliani?
So yes, I think that March 6th, if we are pretty clear that we are going to have the vaccine clinic on February 6th. It's just about how many will be able to administer that at that time. And if we're going to have to do it over the course of several Saturdays consecutively, or even in the mayor and his team have actually put in, we don't know if the state will be able to honor it or how quickly they would, but they've gone ahead and put in the order for like 1,000. Now, I don't know if, the state will actually, to Mayor DiMaria's point, they're kind of doling them out in like a couple hundred at a time. But I will say that on our city's part, they've really gone full force and said, we need all of them. We even have a plan to roll them all out February 6th and 7th together. We just don't know, again, supply and demand. There's a lot of different moving pieces. So we have kind of a slow rollout, a fast rollout.
But even the fast rollout is still the middle of March.
Yeah, so we're looking at March 6th would be the second dose. And so that next Monday would be March 8th.
So
And
we do have some time to talk about the details and negotiate the details of how the rollout will look within the classroom between now and then.
yes, a lot of time. Again, this is just the sort of the initial presentation of the framework, and then a timeline will follow again after negotiations with the union, and then details about the hybrid plan will be worked out from there, because then there is discussion too about when do the teachers return to start to transition to hybrid, when do we do the professional development, at what point in the phases, because some of those phases could overlap, at what point are those things going to happen. But again, that's all pending the next round of discussions.
So I'd also like to say that while vaccines aren't even being negotiated in a lot of districts, and where they are being negotiated, it's a very tough negotiation. I'd like to applaud the Everett Teachers Union or the Everett Teachers Association for managing to secure second vaccines before kids came back in order to keep the staff as absolutely safe and healthy as possible. I think that this is important, not just for educator health and safety, which of course is true, but also for the students. The students don't need to have a teacher get sick and disappear. They don't need to have a teacher have a long-term sub to have to take over in addition to having all the remote net issues. They don't need their teachers to pass away. So I think it's great that you and the mayor and the Everett Teachers Association have come to this point, because it's not an easy point to get to. And in the surrounding districts, like I said, it's been pretty knock down, drag out in a lot of cases. To that end, though, I also want to talk about parents, because I'm both a teacher and a parent. And from my perspective, I believe in honesty. I believe in being straightforward, and I believe in, calling a dog and a duck, and letting things fall where they are. So to that end, I guess what I'm saying is, once the teachers are vaccinated and they have the highest of likelihoods of not catching the COVID-19, we can share with parents what the reality of hybrid learning is going to look like. We can share with parents what the complications of instruction in a hybrid model is going to look like. But at the end of the day, it is not our job to tell our parents whether or not they should have their children return to school. That is the job of the parents to decide. And when we as educators, or we as a school system, or we as a city hall, or we as a school committee start to infringe on those rights, the right of a parent to seek education for their child in whatever way they see as most beneficial, we should have a very good reason for it. And once you take away the teacher vaccine issue, there aren't really any good reasons to not go back hybrid, as long as you're giving parents the right to choose to keep their child home fully remote. And it is my understanding that any parent in Everett Public Schools can keep their child remote for the full year. No teacher is going to be going back to teach until they've had both of the vaccines. And we, as respectful adults working in collaboration with our families, are not going to force decisions on our families that may not be best for them because we think we know better than they do. So I guess for me, that's where I'm at, both as a parent and as an educator.
And to your point too, I think that one other additional item about the return is that teachers will have had 2 vaccinations and then we will be testing students too. So
I wanted to ask about one, surveillance testing as opposed to just pool testing in terms of keeping an eye on spread within the school systems. And go ahead.
So the surveillance testing that we're doing is the pool testing only because surveillance testing that's individual is incredibly expensive and we wouldn't be able to afford it. And so, and actually not just we, I don't know most, like when you actually break down the cost, I think that even City Hall had done that for some other purposes, broke down what are the costs, what would it actually be looking like to do individualized testing. And it does just get like really, the price just becomes exponential. So the surveillance testing, that's why we're doing the surveillance with pool. And then we take that positive, if there's a positive case in the pool, then we do the rapid testing for everybody in that pool so that we can, within those 15 minutes, determine who's the positive case. And then we have, you know, sort of like a decision tree there of, let's say in the case that, you know, everybody comes back negative, for example. So we have, even though that's very unlikely, we do have a decision tree of then what happens, then what are we, who are we testing, how are we testing them, what kind of test do they get next after that? Again, all built out by medical professionals that are far more experienced and understand these protocols better than I, but that is sort of the thinking behind the pool testing as our surveillance.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is that the COVID-19 vaccinations are not approved for children. So that for any adult who's listening and wondering why we're not talking about the vaccinations for kids before we go back, it's because we cannot vaccinate kids. The vaccines are not legal for children. So the only people that can get vaccinated are the teachers in terms of the classroom, which is why we have to continue social distancing. We're going to have to continue mask wearing, and we're going to have to continue safety protocols within the classroom so that we can keep our multi-generational families safe in the city. And also why it's so imperative that parents and families really understand the risk and are making the healthiest decisions for their families as we move forward.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Murray. I have Mayor DeMaria next. If you could, after you speak, please lower your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Murray really did a wonderful job explaining that to everybody who's listening. I think that was wonderful, Dana. You know, it was so easy shutting schools down in March last year. It was like the easiest decision to make. Reopening has been it's a daunting task because we want to do what's right for everyone, our employees and our children. And I really think this plan here, and in talking with the president of the teachers union, she feels comfortable also. I'm not speaking for her. I know she's here. She wants to speak, but I think I think she feels comfortable, and I hope that the teachers all feel comfortable that we did request 950 vaccines. I'm sorry, it was not 200. That was for the first responders. It's 950 vaccines. We'll get our word tomorrow. We'll get word tomorrow on that, the 950. But I think, you know, getting our teachers and our staff, not just teachers, everybody in schools, getting the 2 vaccines before they go back to in-person learning. I think it's imperative. I think we're doing the right thing. to ensure that everyone that's in the schools working is safe. And to those parents, and I think, I mean, I don't want to be redundant. I'm being redundant. Dana said just great. If you're a parent and you're concerned, you still have the ability to have your child, like the grandmother that spoke about her grandson, her being the only person that boy has, her being an older woman, touched me very much when she spoke, to know that this boy only has his grandmother. He can still wake up in the morning, go do his class virtually, and come June 18th, last day of school, move on with his class. And I just want to let you all know, members of the school committee, that my promise to you, the reason why I want to be here with you every Monday, every other Monday night, is to work with you all to ensure that our kids, that we can close that achievement gap. And I talked to Kim a little bit about it this summer. I talked to Superintendent Taliani about it this summer. If as the mayor of the city, working with the city council, I'd like to also identify some funds that we can do some enrichment throughout the summer programs, bring teachers in. This would be something the city would fund to help with those kids that maybe lost a little this last year, to get them back up to speed for their for start in September 21. So I don't want to keep talking because I know I love to speak, but I feel that this plan is good. It's a great plan. I feel comfortable with it. I think we identified a lot of the concerns that everyone had from parents and teachers, and I look forward to hearing some more feedback from everyone. And thank you. And that's it. And thank you very much.
Mr. Barrows, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief because all my colleagues already said it all. First, thank you, Superintendent. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and when people talk about lack of communication, it's definitely not. Communication has improved a lot in the Everett Public Schools. There were times that Vine Street didn't even use emails, and now we are talking about lack of communication. So there is a lot of communication. Of course, there is always a room for improvement. No one is perfect, but on that note, I want to thank the mayor for these vaccines. I think it's really, really crucial, and I commend the mayor for working to get these vaccines and make sure that all of our staff members. So folks who are at home, listen, like no one will go back to the classroom until you are vaccinated. Like I wish I could be vaccinated. Based on the plan of the government now, I'll probably be vaccinated because of my age in June, I believe, May. Maybe I should apply to the Everett Public Schools. So I really want to thank, and I think it's important for our teachers to know, and for this this communication to keep moving and improving. On that note, one thing that I believe, and Superintendent, I mentioned this to you briefly yesterday, which I'm sure it's on your mind already. Perhaps would be important a Q&A on this initial plan. Of course, we don't have dates yet, but like Q&A on the staff members or EPS staff being vaccinated, how the rapid test or poll testing will be working, all of these Q&As, and even answering some questions that teachers had during those emails that they sent to all of us received. And I want to thank our teachers for sending those emails and speaking up. I think a Q&A in our 4 major languages would be important. Put on our website, send a robocall to parents, say we have an initial, like this is not a finalized plan, it's just an initial overview that I'd like if you want to learn more, so parents could read and learn more about it. Even send that the link or paper copy, but contacting all the community-based organizations that we work with in Everett, Haitian, La Comunidad, and others, and let them know about it and tell them to spread the word to parents. Again, this is not a final plan yet, but we know that we want to go back into hybrid. We know that all of our educators, and when I mean educators, all EPS staff members will be vaccinated. We want to go back to the classroom when they're vaccinated. Like my colleague, Ms. Morris said, it might like a question, like, my kid will get vaccinated? No, because the law only requires this, and that. Like those Q&As, I think, are extremely important in English, in Spanish, Haitian, Creole, and in Portuguese. Jesus, how did I forget Portuguese? My own language. So I think that's important, right? So it would stop this bunch of questions, because we can only answer major questions that we can answer at this point, right? But there will be other questions in the future when things get approved. But again, thank you. I know it is a work in progress. I think the plan that you are presenting tonight, this transition in by student groups and grade, when we go back to hybrid, which I think is extremely important. We should go back to hybrid, learning and knowing all these protocol in places, the vaccination and everything else that's going to be put in place before we go back to the classroom. I have, and I'll end with that, several parents that contact me, especially those who English is their second language, how desperate they are about our remote learning. Like their kids are not learning, they are not connected. And your numbers show tonight, like we have about 5,000, 5,300 kids going to school, but we have enrolled over 7,000 kids, right? So there is 2,000 kids out there who are really not attending schools. They're going one day, they're not going another day, but they're not. It is sadly, it is the reality. But if we have all these things in place, and now knowing the vaccination, both doses before they go back, I think it's tremendous. And like spread the word about it, answering as many questions as we can to our families, and along with ETA to their membership, to our great educators and our custodians and everyone. It's not only those who are ETA members, because I believe our custodians are I know our custodians are in a different union. They should also all receive communication on how things initially will work, at least things that we know as of now. So thank you again. And Mr. Parker, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Barrows. Ms. Cadell, do you have your hand up to speak again, or is you just didn't take it down? So therefore you have the floor.
Thank you.
And now that there's everybody's had a chance to talk, I'm going to ask that everybody just hold their comments to 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I only got 24 minutes left in my battery, so.
Plug it in. Okay. Again, to the superintendent, back to the day at the in the hybrid sessions. What will the hours of school be when they go back?
So I would expect a regular school day, but in the school reopening plan, it did say that, again, there were certain things that we said very clearly that we knew about the hybrid plan. And then there were certain things that it said we were exploring about the hybrid plan. So one of the conversations with the union is about the length of the school day, which might be modified. But it would be, I would say, to expect a regular school day with small modifications. But again, I can't answer that question completely, because that is one of the things that is still malleable.
Okay, thank you. And then again, in the school, we gonna do and give them a lunch that's already pre-bagged for them?
Yeah, so we have a strategy by which, and a lot of districts are using it. There's like a cart that will be going around and they will be distributed. They will be eating in their classrooms. Again, one of the ways that unfortunately the hybrid school day is not going to look like a regular school day yet, hopefully one day or next year. So yes, they will be delivered to the classrooms.
Okay, and you did mention, and this sounds good, if we could incorporate some type of exercise, I'm not talking every day, but even a trip to the outdoors when the weather is better for our children. Do you think that's still a possibility?
Yes, we are definitely prioritizing that. And that's another one of the reasons that staffing constraints were certainly the biggest, but we also want to keep gyms, cafeterias open so that even in not great weather, we are planning for movement breaks, modified recess type periods so that we can make sure that our students aren't just sitting in one classroom and one desk all day long.
Okay. And then I'm going to, I think some of these things that were asked of us, we can ask you and perhaps you can answer via email, that it don't have to belabor this much longer. But I do want to ask you about the cafeteria workers. Will they be on the list with our staff to be getting vaccines as well?
Yes, so the priority list that there's, in the tiers that we're in that phase, tier 1 is sort of this, the teachers are substantially separate, but then also sort of the staff that are already in buildings. So that includes custodians, lunch workers, our tech specialists, because we know they're going to be in and out of classrooms, administrators, clerks. So we have a list. So that first phase is actually our largest. So it's about 300 staff. Because it includes a lot of the personnel that are, standard in the building, along with the substantially separate teachers.
Okay, all right. So they will be included during through one of the tiers. So there's two more things here. And one was, I totally agree with my colleagues, including the mayor. I think what he did with the virtual tour and reaching out to people really gave people a platform to speak. I love what you did with the ELSA parents. That was awesome because it's in their native tongue. They can feel comfortable asking and getting answers. So I think I think we have something to go on now, because we have tentative dates for the rollout of the vaccine. And so we have tentative, and everything still can be moved. So we know that, but maybe that is something between now and when this is actually going to happen, that we could set up to do these virtual tours among specific groups. Can't do it throughout the whole city at one time. It's just too much. So the way that the mayor and his staff had figured out how to do these separate groups, I think it was a great idea. And I think that will be something that will definitely show our transparency and allow people to ask questions and get feedback and give us feedback as well.
Absolutely. And so, like I said, we do have those planned. And another one of the things, though, is I don't want to rush them too much, because while I understand your point about we do have some information to share, we are going to be translating the slides from this presentation, posting those, getting out the word. But we actually have some really critical decision points that are going to be made within the week. And so I'd rather than having, multiple ones that families have to attend, I think the next week we're going to get a lot of crucial information that's going to be worth sharing. And so we should just wait a little bit more, because then we're going to have some timelines. We're going to have some real. So rather than convening everybody multiple times, I do that, if people can hold on just a couple more days, they're going to get a lot more answers, exponentially more within the next, 5 work days. And
it's awesome that they're hearing that from you tonight. Yeah. And I think that will slow down, the high speed that we've been going at. On your surveys.
Okay, excuse me, Ms. Cadillo, your 5 minutes is up.
Just one more thing, Mr. Parker. On the yes and no on the surveys, could you possibly add a maybe, and then also a line that people could fill out with a comment if they had a question or a suggestion?
So the reason we actually took out the maybe, we had the maybe in the last survey we gave out, but we really needed to know, because if you put down maybe, everybody will put down maybe. I'm a maybe, right? Like all the time right now, COVID is like the big world of maybe. So if we don't have people, so we actually strategically chose that while people can fill it out and change their mind later, we really needed to know a yes or no, because eventually we got to start school and you're going to have to decide yes or no, and it can't be a maybe. You know, we have to be able to staff a yes or a no. So the people will be willing, they, like I said, they can change their determinations. We're still waiting to hear from from many more families, so we're hoping to get that out. But I think, I'm sorry to say, I just think we're past maybe. Like we have to kind of start putting some nail, like, you know, stakes in the ground here so that we can make the plans.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Ms. Sani.
Thank you. Before I give my approval on the revised opening plan, I'd like to hear from the teachers union, Kim Auger, if possible, if she'd like to speak and voice her opinion.
I don't know if I need to be recognized by the chair, but I'm happy to speak.
I need a motion. I need it seconded, and
I'll make a motion.
Second motion.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to invite Ms. Auger to appear before us.
I thank you all so much.
Sorry, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yeah.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all so much. Before I begin, I'll either happy to answer any questions that any of you may have, but first of all, thank you for the invitation to be able to speak tonight. First of all, the rollout of this vaccination plan is very, very exciting. And as the superintendent stated earlier, today we had a general meeting and Marina Jimmy, the MTA president, was on the call with us. And we are one of the very first districts to be able to be offering something like this. So to be able to be part of that and to make sure that our teachers are being given this vaccination, which will in turn keep our students safe, which will in turn keep their families safe, is probably the greatest gift that we could be asking for and to be able to receive. So I'd like to thank the city for being able to get this done and the superintendent for helping us to roll this out, because that's really, really, really important for all of us to make sure that we are safe, to be able to make sure our students are safe. Secondly, I just wanted to say that, you know, this is just the beginning of the work. We look forward to the continued collaboration and cooperation that we started during the remote model. And I do want to say that as difficult as it was, and just to be able to pivot and to be able to turn on a dime, to be able to have our teachers be able to teach in this remote model was amazing. And we had continuous conversations and collaboration during that period. I do want to say that, you know, there were a lot of rumors going around during the past couple of weeks about what was happening, and people are scared, people are nervous, and they pick up one piece of it. And we need to move forward, and we need to make sure that we're giving correct information. So I do want to stress the importance of conversation and collaboration, and making sure that we're able to get our messages out and make sure that they're clear and concise, so that we can avoid any fears that may be occurring due to some half information that may be out in the public. So I look forward to getting back to having our meetings, to having the collaboration, and being able to make sure that our negotiating team and the subcommittees are working together with the superintendent, her administrative team, and also with the school committee negotiation team, to be able to move forward and really be making these decisions that are so important, moving back into, you know, eventually a hybrid model. And also, you know, when we're back in person, there's going to be a lot of changes that are going on, and a lot of things that are going to be different about teaching. Even today, just talking, you know, we had a lot of conversation around what a snow day looks like now, here in the future, and the other day when that happened. Everything changed due to COVID, and our normal is changed. So I just really do want to stress I feel that when the superintendent came, our conversations were great. I was really feeling the collaboration. I'm really looking forward to having that continue and be able to move forward with this, because I think the things that were said tonight at this meeting, especially being able to move forward from the concerns of the community where I live, where I've grown up, and the concerns of our teachers and our parents, and being able to make decisions from there, solid decisions, being able to move forward on that, I think are really going to be the best model for our students to go. So I'm just very, very happy how this went, but I do want to stress the communication part and making sure that we're all on the same page.
Well, I'm glad, Ms. Auger, that you came and you got to speak, because, you know, it was a decision that I have to make tonight, and I wanted to hear from you to speak on for the teachers as well, because earlier they all, you know, spoke against it, and now with the plan, they can see it. And
I just want to stress that I think, I mean, obviously, we still have a concern moving forward, but knowing forward that we're being able to work with the vaccination plan, knowing that we are going to be getting the 2 doses for our teachers, and I know that we still have some communication, some conversations that are going to be had, moving the teachers back into the mode of coming into the buildings, but also knowing that, you know, we're talking about safe testing for our students. So the conversation's still there, but moving forward with the plan and especially the vaccination period and the slides that the superintendent presented tonight, I think that we're on the right motion to be moving forward, to be able to continue our conversations. There's still more work to be done, but I'm just very grateful to be part of a district, have the teachers have this much support and this much caring about, you know, the well-being of the entire community. But working with people that are willing to make sure that our staff is safe, all of us, from everyone included, not just the teachers, our paras, our administrative assistants, our administrators, our custodians, everyone, to make sure that we're safe. And I think that's a big move on the part of the city and the administration to be able to have that start.
thank you very much for speaking.
Thank you.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any other questions of Ms. Auger? And excuse me with the customary thanks. All right, so with that, I see
Mr.
that.
Chairman, is there proper motion to call for the question, or vote in favor?
We have one more speaker, and that's
Sorry.
Mrs. Murray for the second time, so we'll let her ride.
Sorry, was that a recognition, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So the only thing that I want to add, and I hope that I'm not stepping on President Auger's toes here in terms of negotiations or rushing things for Superintendent Tahiliani, but as an educator in a high school where we know that high school students, A, cannot be vaccinated, and B, can transmit the virus the way that any other adult body can, while they may have the developing minds of later children, they do have, you know, the ability to pass COVID like anyone else. Lunch in a cafeteria terrifies me, and that's the truth. I would love for us to consider a grab and go lunch, and maybe the last hour of the day being remote for our students, or asynchronous for our students, or something like that, if the state regulations would allow for something like that. I don't know, and I wouldn't hazard to speak on the safety of having a cafeteria with 100 or 200 or 250 elementary school kids, but the idea of 250 adolescents in a lunchroom with community spread at the level that it is really concerns me. So moving forward, I think that's one of the safety procedures that first comes to mind for me in terms of planning for hybrid return. And that's all I wanted to add.
So we do intend that, unfortunately, our high schoolers, well, unfortunately for them, our high schoolers will have to eat in their classrooms, and it will be the same model where, again, they will have to switch classes, unlike our, you know, there's no way around that. We tried, but they'll have to switch classes, but in whatever class they're in during that lunch period, they will be in the same model as everybody else, where the food will be delivered to them. And then you mentioned something else. Gosh, I've already forgotten. Sorry. You said two things. You said lunch and
Just lunch, and in terms of if the last hour of the day could be asynchronous so that the kids could grab and go with the lunch.
yes. So the high school AP and principal actually did have just one so far less learning listening session with some of the students, and it actually has been. And again, we're looking into a modified day. One of the suggestions that came from the students was actually potentially having advisory that they have in the morning be what's the asynchronous part. So we are still looking into that. So it could be at the beginning or the end, depending. But that's something we heard from the students as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody spoke. I think we can go on to the next order of business. And with that, Mr. Aprizay, I had to switch rooms to get my battery. So if you could take over the meeting so I can get the rest of my stuff, I'd appreciate it.
A pleasure. Okay. Where are we on this? Taking over the, Mr. Mayor, you want to make a motion?
Are we on item number 2 or right? 2 or are we still on 1?
Moving out, number 2. Superintendent, you're on mute, I think.
Oh, am I?
No, go ahead.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, we were still, that was all still 1?
Yes.
That was all still 1. However, I did give you a preview for item number 2.
Okay.
So we're technically on item number 2, which is now the actual request for approval of the revised school reopening plan. Again, what the revised school reopening plan includes, and you guys can decide how you're going to vote on this, whether you take it in pieces, vote on all of it, is the 3 main changes or tenets to our first school reopening plan, which is moving from the alternating week schedule to the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, from the transition in slowly versus going hybrid all on one day, which in the past, it was November 2nd, beginning of Q2, we were going to go full hybrid. Now we'd like to transition it in by student group and grade span. And the third being that the timeline for the transition in being contingent upon the vaccine. So those were the 3 requests I was making.
Motion made for favorable action on item number 2, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Mr. Parker, you're back.
If I could speak on this piece on the motion.
You're frozen. There you are.
Okay, I'd like to speak on this this piece before we vote, please. So on the motion. What we learned tonight, that the vaccines is the cornerstone of this whole plan, with the collaboration between the superintendent and the mayor. We, as a school body, the majority of us have signed on with over 100 members of the Mass Association of School Committees who represent urban districts such as Everett. We've joined with Holyoke, New Bedford, Fall River, Revere, and Chelsea, to name a few, asking that Governor Baker prioritizes making the vaccinations available for urban districts like Everett. So we've taken that action as a body. Lots of emails went out today, and thank you for all of them. To the same people that sent out emails, please email Governor Baker asking him to make vaccination distribution a priority for urban districts like Everett, and then we can move forward. Because as Mrs. Murray pointed out, even if we moved at super warp speed, the absolute soonest we would have people or students back in the building wouldn't be until the beginning to mid-March. So I think tonight there was some confusion out there. And I think, myself is probably part to blame as far as the messaging goes. But I think tonight people thought that we were going to be approving a back to work plan, and that's not the case. So we're simply revising a document that was created last August with the input of a lot of stakeholders and a lot of cohorts. In fact, I think the move from every other week to Schedule A and B was a suggestion of an educator. That's true, correct? So we are listening. So with that, vaccinations are key. Please join us. Email Governor Baker as soon as you can, and we can all get back to school safely sooner. Thank you.
Can I make a motion that we separate the items specifically the scheduling, and pull that out and lay it on the table our next meeting.
I believe we have a motion, right, that the mayor made, no?
Was it seconded? I'm having tech issues. I apologize if I didn't hear the
I'll withdraw my motion. What was your motion?
I wanted to pull out the scheduling and lay it on the table for our next meeting. The alternating weeks versus Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, I'll withdraw my second then.
I'll second Samantha's motion.
I'm
With
sorry.
the understanding that the reason for the laying it on the table is to give parents and educators time to give input.
And research regarding available options. Because, can I speak on the motion? Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Okay. So previous grants for out-of-school providers have attendance requirements. So I'm trying to determine if there's an attendance requirement, like you have to be there so many days in order to be eligible for the grant, or is breaking it up. So I think just some more research and we could come back to the table in 2 weeks. That's what I was asking.
All right, so the motion's been made and seconded to take all three recommendations and vote on them separately. So with that, the first motion is to lay on the table, shift from a weekly alternating schedule to a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday schedule. So the motion before us is to lay it on the table. There is a second and there's on the motion. So Ms. Celestin, can you roll call vote on that, please?
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica, Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes. 8 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. You have laid that item on the table.
Mr. LaMonica is a yes, I believe.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I'm a yes. I just logged back in. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so if we recognize Mr. Monaco as being a yes, that's 9 in the affirmative. You've laid this item on the table. So the second part of the revision plan is to transition in by student groups in grade spans. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. You have moved favorable action. The third part of the revised plan for your approval is that this is all contingent upon vaccination distribution. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. You have moved favorable action on the contingency of vaccine distribution. Madam Superintendent, can you read the next item of business, please?
Thank you so much. So item number 3 is to request approval of the modification to the EPS school calendar. Again, that is just to be negotiated and discussed with the ETA, but changes to the school calendar do need to be approved by the school committee. So I just wanted approval to be able to potentially extend the school year by 2 days to work in the 2 days of professional development within the school year. If that is okay, and we then negotiate that with the union, we would bring the final finalized calendar to a following meeting for approval. So what I'm,
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to revise or approve the modification for negotiation of the EPS calendar. On the motion, Ms. Cardello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the motion, I'm not sure what we're voting on. I know about the 2 days and I know it's for PD, depending on when we go back and all, but what are we voting yes or no for? To give the superintendent the right to add 2 days prior to negotiating, or for the right to negotiate the 2 days with the ETA? I'm not sure what we're actually voting on.
Mr. Chairman, my motion was, my understanding was to allow the superintendent to negotiate to approve the superintendent to attempt to negotiate the adjustment to the school calendar.
And that's
Thank
what I
you, Mr.
second.
Chair.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lambert? No? Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so the motion has been made and seconded for favorable action for negotiation of adding 2 days for personal development to the school calendar. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes. So you have moved favorable action to allow for negotiation. Item number 4, please.
thank you so much. So item number 4 is to request approval of an authorized signatory listing for the district, which we have to have every year. So on that list, in addition to myself, would be both Kim Sai, the deputy superintendent, and Anu Jayant, the chief financial officer, who would then be authorized signatories for all contracts and or financial documents on behalf of the Everett Public Schools. So examples of this could be any grant final financial reports to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or contracts pertaining to copier machine leases, curriculum material purchases, etc.
So move.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion made and seconded to add, along with the superintendent, Deputy Superintendent Sai and Chief Financial Officer Giant to be authorized signatory for the district. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, the vote was in the positive. We have approved the new listing for signees. Next item of business, please.
So much. So item number 5 on the agenda is a request for the approval of the Everett Music Department to represent the Everett Public Schools at the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. So we're very excited about this. At this time, I would like to request to bring forward Coordinator of Music, Mr. Eugene O'Brien, to give us an overview of this exciting opportunity.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to bring forward Mr. O'Brien. Starting next meeting, when we request people to come forward, I'll just ask for a voice vote. But in keeping with tonight, with earlier asking for a roll call from Ms. Auger, I'll ask for the same with Mr. O'Brien. So can we please have a roll call vote, please, to invite Mr. O'Brien before us?
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Miss Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, surprisingly, it's unanimous. Mr. O'Brien, welcome back.
Welcome. Hello. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
It's a glorious year. 21 is going to be a heck of a lot better than 2020. Believe it or not, we're looking for things to make these kids feel vibrant and to create a lot of hope. I know it's been a long night. It's been a long night for everybody. And the thing that we need for these students to create some hope for our children. And I've been dealing with a lot of the kids on a daily basis. This is my office. This is my classroom. I deliver instruction. And every day it's incredible on some of the communications I have with my kids. It's actually a little bit closer now than it was before. It's incredible. So the request on the table, it sounds crazy, but this started in motion about almost 2 years ago to perform at the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. And that's like, what? What's that about? Well, the folks that run the Memorial Day event in Washington, D.C. saw how good the Everett Band was. They said, you guys, we're going to send you an invitation to represent the state of Massachusetts in Hawaii for 21, which seems like out of the question. This is going to be the last time they do it. There's 2 survivors left from the Arizona. And this is a extraordinary occasion. I'm working with the Senator Dean Minico's office, just like we did for Washington, D.C. We're working together as a collaborative effort. The biggest thing I have to try to do is try to get the band back together again and live. And we're looking at possibly in June when the weather gets better and we can be outside like the way we were before. It's an incredible thing. And I just want to share my screen. And this is the letter. I don't know if you got it. It's disabled. Sorry. I guess I can't.
I believe I shared the letter with them, though. It should be
Oh,
included.
you have the letter?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, I can just cut to the chase. It's an incredible opportunity. The plan would be to take the Crimson Tide Marching Band, some choral students, the color guard, and some of the string students out to Hawaii, December 7th on the back end of over this cliff after this pandemic, post-pandemic. And I like to include this year's senior class that really didn't have a senior year and to have them involved with this special occasion. It sounds like it's really a difficult thing to do, but if just a brief lesson is we went to 20 years ago, we went to the Orange Bowl, the national championship game at the down in Miami, Florida. We performed at halftime with a mass group. And at the time, that was like a pipe dream. They said, O'Brien, you're out of your mind. You can't do that. The Orange Bowl, there's 30 kids in the band. I said, I'm a dreamer. We always like Martin Luther King sing, I have a dream. We always aim high at it. And we have been to Washington, D.C. 7 times, performed there. And I'm sure you've seen the videos and all that stuff. It's ecstatic. I'm very happy about it. From my perspective, to take 100 kids on a plane ride in this day and age, who knows, right? But we're thinking post-pandemic, and it'd be a lot of things. It's a great honor. The President of the United States, I believe President Biden will be going. It's the last time they're going to have it because it would be the last anniversary of the 2 surviving members of the Arizona. It's historical. It's something. It's the biggest thing we ever did, and to represent the city of Everett, the state of Massachusetts, and to be out there at that special moment, it will be historical for the rest of our lives. So that's what's on the table. So I just want to share that with you.
Okay, any questions of our guest?
Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Mr. DiMaria.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mayor DiMaria.
Thank you. I think it was last year or the year before, the U.S. Conference of Mayors had our annual Mayors Convention out in Hawaii. And Mayor Caldwell hosted all the mayors there. And we were able to go to visit, tour the entire Pearl Harbor and just the history. It was amazing. The tour was amazing. It's something that I think everybody should experience. And for our kids to be able to, to do this would be unbelievable for public school students to be from Everett to be able to go out to Honolulu and to experience this is just absolutely amazing. And so, Brian, I want to be able to help with fundraising, as we did when the kids went to the Orange Bowl 20 years ago. This is something that I really want to see our children be able to do, to experience. The band has, for years, put in so much work. Has really been an organization that all of us in the city can be so proud to have. Is our band, the marching band, the percussion, the choir. I mean, you have all have done, from you and Penny and Charlie and the whole group, what you've done for these kids is absolutely amazing. And so you have my full support. I will work every business owner, every big corporation in the city and state to ensure that we get all our kids out there. And hopefully this will be just the right time when this pandemic will be hopefully behind us and everyone is vaccinated. And this is something that we all should hopefully be able to attend. All us members of the school administration, and parents and family members, this would be something really, really tremendous. And what an honor to be asked to participate. Kudos to you and your team, because it's because of you. You and specifically you and Mr. and Mrs. K and the whole group, what you guys have done, it's just truly amazing. So I'm so proud of you all. And I know you and I always talk, so I'm going to work very hard to help you achieve this goal of getting these kids there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Barros.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to echo what the mayor said. Mr. O'Brien, I'm really not surprised you got this letter, because I had the honor and the pleasure to be in Washington, D.C. with you and the band and the kids, and with that great team of friends that Senator Di Domenico brought for the Memorial Day Parade, where the kids were representing Massachusetts. And remember when we were, I believe we were right by the National Archives when the band came and just was right there with the huge banner of Everett High School, Everett Public Schools, and Massachusetts. And then afterwards, when we went to the Arlington Cemetery, where the kids were there, it was just fantastic. It was just amazing. So that's why I'm not surprised that you got this letter. So as the mayor said, anything I believe I can do, that I'm sure that I can say on behalf of my colleagues that we can do to make sure and that this happens. So I just want to throw my full support, saying that I'm not surprised, because I was there when I saw the amazing work that you and the kids and all of our educators did in DC. And last but not least, to congratulate you. This is going to be amazing. I'm glad that it's in December. Hopefully by then, this pandemic will be, at least, if it's not solved, but at least will be safe by that time, which I'm sure it will be. I have faith and hope that that's going to happen. So congratulations again, and hopefully I'll be able to go this time as I did to Washington, D.C. Hawaii, it's always Hawaii, right? I'll see if I can do, but thank you again. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Abraze.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. O'Brien, I hate to play lawyer here, but you threw out the statement that you plan on taking present seniors who will no longer be in our school system at the time you plan on making this trip.
That's correct. It's an idea that I wanted to give something back to the seniors. Now, from a legal standpoint, I'm not sure what we can do about that. And it's great that you brought it to the forward, but the idea is to include them part of this.
Well, yeah, again, I'm just
Yeah.
looking at it in terms of liability and things like that. I mean, you're either in the high school, you're either in the Everett Public Schools, or you're not in the Everett Public Schools. I mean, there's a lot of athletes that are missing out on their year of participation that I think would like to claim a red shirt or whatever to be able to take advantage to come back for another year. But again, I just think we have to examine that. I apologize in advance if this does not work out for the seniors that you're mentioning, but I think that's something that we have to check out thoroughly before we approve that. So before, I just want to make sure when we vote on what I'm hoping that we're going to approve, that that aspect of it gets examined.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cadello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say congratulations, Mr. O'Brien. You've never ceased to amaze me. Never have you and your group and all of our students have made us so proud through the years. And when I saw that in my package the other day, you would have thought I just won a ticket to Hawaii. I was so excited to see that our band was so recognized and invited to do this honorable, this is just great. And I thank you. And I hope all goes well. And you have our backing, and we'll do what we can to help raise some money because we want our kids to be able to go. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion favorable action on the order.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, and with that, can I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Abrazez,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor Di Maria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
With pleasure, yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Absolutely, yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Congratulations, yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. We approve the trip to Pearl Harbor for the Crimson Tide Marching Band. So I'd entertain a motion to excuse our guests with customary thanks.
So moved.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Okay, thank you all. Aloha.
And just start thinking about how you're gonna top this one, okay?
I don't know. I retire. I don't know. No, not yet. We're not done yet. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Madam Superintendent, if you could read item number 6, please.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much and congratulations to Mr. O'Brien and his entire team. So item number 6 is to request acceptance of a grant from Project Bread in the amount of $4,500. So the grant funds awarded are going to be for staffing, advertising, and any gas costs associated with the meal home deliveries.
Favorable action on the order.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded for favorable action to accept the grant in the amount of $4,500. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Celestin.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor Di Maria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, 9 in the affirmative. You have accepted the grant. So next order of business, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, so thank you. That brings us to the end of the report of the superintendent and to Roman numeral 6, which is items submitted by school committee members. So we just have one item under that, which is the designation of one member to sign and approve all bills and payrolls per Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 56 for the year 2021. And that was submitted by Mr. Parker, Chairman Parker.
So if I may, from the chair, just some background. So, last year, as did the city council, we both approved Mass General law before us because of the pandemic, allowing, one member of this body to sign all the invoices on behalf of what was and is now, the Finance Negotiations Committee. So as vice chairman last year, or I'm sorry, as chairman last year of the Finance Committee, you approved me as, the signee for all. Now that I'm a chairman, I automatically have to sign the bills, which kind of leaves like somewhat of a vacancy in this position. So with that, I think it's important that we named somebody. So Mr. Barrows.
Mr. Chairman, so as you were the chair of the Finance Committee last time, and then you had the authority to sign, I would move to appoint my colleague, Ms. Lambert, who is now the chair of the Committee on Finance and Negotiations, to be the person authorized to sign.
Second motion.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to put Mrs. Lambert in nomination. Any questions on the motion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, 9 in the affirmative, 0. You've unanimously named Mrs. Lambert. And Mrs. Lambert, isn't it always weird voting for yourself? Well, now you know.
I wasn't
So-
sure if I was supposed to accept her.
Yeah, so with that, that's actually the last piece of business on the agenda. Before we move for adjournment, I just want to recognize or mention that, we now have 5 standing committees and a committee of the whole. We reduced the last year from 21. Thank you for all your cooperation as far as, what your choices were. And I'm very, very happy to point out to the community that every female member of this body serves as a chairperson on a subcommittee. So congratulations to everybody, and thank you for your cooperation, and that's something to be proud of. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, on the motion, is there an executive session? No, right?
No,
Okay.
no.
I just want to let you know, this is a great first meeting. It was only, what was it, 4, what time did we start here? 6:30, 4 hours and 45 minutes. This is great.
Yeah, little technical, a little winded, but we'll get there.
Let's, maybe in 2 weeks, we can do it in like 2 hours. I still have to
like
walk
that.
my dog.
Get
like
used, Mr. Mayor, get used to it.
There was times we had 2-hour meetings, so that's always a goal. So
There you go.
I'm sorry.
Into midnight.
Do we have a motion before adjournment? For adjournment.
We
For
did.
adjournment.
And seconded.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded for adjournment. Roll call vote, please. Ms.
Mr.
Leslie.
Abraze,
Yes.
Mr. Barrows,
Yes.
Ms. Cardello,
Yes.
Mayor DiMaria,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. LaMonica,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Sarni,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, 9 yeas, 0 nays. We have adjourned. Thank you so much for all your time, your questions.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Night.